Okay, welcome everybody to the final podcast, JSR Dungeon podcast for JSR The Trader Season 1. It's me, your host, Jeremy. We have
Charlie.
and we have Emily, but we also have filling in for Ava today is Josie. Josie has been tuning in all season, so she has some thoughts and opinions to share as well. We're going to start off the podcast with Jendaya and Norris from episode 6 because we never did an individual podcast with them. We'll talk to them for a little bit, and then we'll bring in Nick, Leek, and Keisha tonight. Unfortunately, we are missing out on Marissa, Javen, and Justice. They aren't able to attend, but we appreciate their time and what they brought to the show. We'll still talk about them throughout the episode. Now, without further ado, let's welcome in Norris and Jendaya.
Yes. Guys,
Yes.
Yes.
Welcome, Jendaya. Welcome, Norris. We love the background, Norris.
Hello.
How are you
Glad
guys doing? How's everyone doing tonight?
Good. We had a minute to warm up.
We sure did. And,
Yes.
in that minute, I've been drinking a little wine as well. So hopefully we have a good podcast tonight.
Cheers. Oh, it's covered
See
up by
through.
the
There we go.
okay.
There we go. All right, well, yeah, everyone who's drinking, let's do a little
Looks
cheers.
like I'm choking Andy.
Did I drink?
Okay.
Cheers, cheers, cheers.
Here's the final podcast. Cheers.
It's mine.
So
I drink out the bottle.
we have a lot to cover with you too. Both of you brought a lot to this season, some at different points than others. I would say actually for the both of you, you both started off more on the quieter side. Now, for Norris, this wasn't really an issue, but Jendaya, we did see this become an issue for you. What was your intentions with being quiet in the beginning? And this can go for both of you as well. Oh, good. I guess we get quiet again. The strategy comes back.
Oh,
Wait, who are we talking to? Me or Norris?
We'll start with you, Jendaya. What was your idea going into the game?
Oh my God, guys. I know like normally, hold on, my dog is here and he's Cuckoo, please. Thank you. Yeah, normally in like games, like normally on Discord games, I'm like really like out there, really like social from the get-go. But cam games, I'm really shy. Like I'm really camera shy, guys. Like every time I get in front of my camera, I like stay quiet. I can't like, and that's normally how it always is. So like, I didn't really assume people would have thought that because I was quiet, I was like guilty or something. But I guess it did. It wasn't really a strategy. It was just that I was shy and I didn't want to like speak over people. And it had like a lot of loud personalities. I didn't want to add another loud personality. So I just like stayed back and let people like, do their thing until I got called out. And then that's when I started like getting more vocal.
Okay. And Norris, what was your idea going into the game?
well, my idea was really to stay in the middle of the pack. I think in a game like the Traders, in the initial stages, you really do want to be like someone who's like non-threatening, but also someone who the faithfuls, believe like, okay, they can, help like push our cause forward and get some of these traders out. So I really didn't want to rock the boat. I didn't want to even say anything that could be like, oh, well, wait a minute. He's kind of thinking some stuff. Maybe we should get rid of him early.
Mm-hmm.
So I was trying to just go with the flow. But I do think this was a situation where the traders really took advantage of um, the loud versus quiet dynamic. And I'm sure we'll talk about this more once everybody's here. I have, some things to say.
Yes.
But I think that it was really a situation where the traders were allowing the louder players to sort of talk themselves in a circle and take each other out, while the quiet ones were the more observant ones, really noticing things, but not necessarily wanting to say anything because it was like you speak up, suddenly you're either a target or you're taken out by the traders. So it was really like a tightrope that I had to walk, and I think other people would agree that we had to walk in order to get to the point that we got to in the season.
Okay. I'm gonna ask you a question about that in just a second, but Keisha is here, so I'm gonna let her into the call, and I'll just catch her up real quick on what we're talking about.
Winner, winner.
Welcome, Keisha.
You let me in. Hello, hello.
Yes. Oh my gosh, a new background. No more. What's his name? Alan Cummings.
No Alan Cummings.
All right. Well, first of all,
Our
congratulations.
winner.
Your Justice isn't joining us, but you are, one half of the winner, and you played a phenomenal game. And we're gonna get to your game in just a moment. Right now, we're talking about episode 6, and we're just talking about how Zendaya and Norris were a little bit more quiet when they started their journey in the game, and Norris was just letting off on how he felt as though the traders definitely took advantage of the loud versus quiet situation.
Yeah, I have a
But
question about that too.
but I did want to ask Norris real quick. Episode 1, we kind of saw you block the traders. You said Keisha, you said Carson.
Yeah.
So you who were your allies? Like who would you was there anyone you would have felt comfortable telling that information to at that point in the time?
No, not at that point. I mean, I didn't know anybody except for Nick, and Nick and I had, questionable history. So I really didn't want to tell anybody. I really didn't even want to tell y'all, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, it was just one of those things where it's like just off of first impressions, just noticing things. And I mean, I named 4 people, so, half of them were completely off base.
Mhm.
But I really wanted to wait until I got my, foot in the door, really just got some momentum in the game and started building those relationships. Because, if you throw out a name too early and you have no social capital, you're gonna be gone, and no one really even knows who you are. So, it's like, oh, is that? Oh, okay, Norris, who's there? Oh, well, they're gone, and then it's like that's the end of it. So, yeah, there wasn't really anybody I could tell at that point, but yeah, I think for me it was just about waiting until the right moment. Thankfully, the right moment did come for one of them, but then the wrong moment came. So, for me.
Wait, so Norris, kind of going based off Jeremy's question and then what you just said, what about Keisha and Carson based off the first impressions? Was it just that Carson was loud? What was it that you were like in that first round that you were like, oh, maybe it's them?
Yeah, well, Carson to me just seemed to be very much just comfortable being himself fully. And I feel like knowing that the rest of us were sort of just easing our way into the game, it seemed like that was like a convenient way to, I said this before, but a very convenient way to hide in plain sight. Just the person who's just always loud, always chaotic, and if you just keep being like that, then it's like you can always write it off as, oh, that's just who I am. With Keisha, I think it was more so just um, some of the things like in the early stages and discussions, it seemed like um, Keisha, you were very good at sort of waiting for the exact right moment to say something. And we talked about this, but y'all talked about it before on the podcast, but just waiting until the right moment to really push things in the right direction. And it was in the right direction in a sense, but it also led to us sending home faithful after faithful. So I think time after time with that happening, it was like, okay, you're really good at this, but it's not good for us. So something must be off. But yeah.
Yeah, kind of like also bouncing off of both of those questions that Jeremy and Emily have asked. And I know that we're going to get into this and we're going to break down both of your games and what it looks like. But both of you are very well known JSR alumni, and you both were coming in with some solid relationships, but also solid history that you have with people. What were your kind of thoughts? Like, walk us through what the game looked like for you, walking in, seeing who was on the cast, and the moves that you made and the things that you said, and ultimately got to your demise because we see both of you just barely make it to finale. So what do you think caused that? Do you think that you could have done anything differently? And just like what the game looked at like through your eyes. We can start with Jendaya just because we've been harping on Norris a little bit, so just to give him a break.
Okay, this is an interesting question. Wait, before I start, can you all hear me clearly?
Yes, Jendaya, congratulations. You have a good mic today.
Okay, so I swear to God, if this podcast and you're hearing me in muffles again, I'm gonna be suing the franchise. I'm literally gonna be suing the franchise because ain't no way. So we have it here. You all are hearing me clear. Okay.
We can hear you clearly, loud and clear.
Okay, so great. Walking in, the faces I recognized were like Javens, Donnie, Nick G. I recognized Alicia, and I think that's all actually. That's literally the entire like the trajectory of who I knew. And I was like, immediately, I was like, I'm not working with Nick G because every game I play with Nick G, he's a snake, the biggest snake ever. I was like, maybe I could try and work with Alicia or Javen or Danny, but like somehow or the other, I was never in any rooms with them. Like I would never be in a room with Danny or a room with Javen or a room with Alicia. I would like always be in like a room with like Justice or like just a random room or like with Leak. So it didn't like those pre-existing game relationships didn't really come into play in this game at all for me. I made a really, really strong bond with Justice. And like Justice swore she knew me, but I can't remember knowing Justice before this. But I love her down bad. Like that was my girl, my ride or die. And so I kind of just like I literally only relied on Justice throughout the game. And I did, well, the aspect that viewers didn't see was the texting aspect where we had to like text people on Discord. So I did a lot of like underlying texting to people. But one person that I swore I wouldn't have texted, as I did text, that led to my demise was Nick G. Nick G, the snake. Oh my gosh, guys, I swear to God, I felt so bad because when Javen was attacking me, I was like, you know what? Maybe I got it wrong. Maybe Nick G wasn't a traitor. And I mean, he wasn't. But I mean, to me, he was. He was. Because why did I try to save him? Why did I try to save him? And he ended up voting me. He ended up voting me, and that's why I left. Like, literally, guys, he's a villain. He's a villain. Behind the scenes, I literally was messaging him, like, you know what, I'm going to try. That's why Justice didn't vote him. That's why Justice voted Javen. Okay, wait, let me break that down. So that episode when I left, when Javen won the safety thingy, I assumed we couldn't vote for him. Like I literally thought we couldn't vote for him. So oh my God, my favorite Tyler, the Creator song, stream his new album, like him is playing right now. Anyways, yeah, I thought we couldn't vote for him. And so that's why I didn't vote for him. That's why I said I would vote for Keisha, because she was the other person I thought it was. But Justice knew we could vote for Javen. And I begged Justice. I was like, Justice, do not vote for Nick. I have a plan. Don't vote for Nick. She was like, well, I can't vote for anyone else. But I won't vote for Nick. I trust in you. I won't do it. And I was like, Nick, I got Justice to not vote for you. Just vote with me. Vote with me. Vote Keisha. Da 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 da. And then when push came to shove, I assumed he would have, and he didn't. And that's what got me out. He's a villain. He's a villain. He's literally a villain. So like my reaction was totally like normal. It was literally called for because he's a villain. And I need everyone to know that story. They need to know that he's evil. Because in no way.
Well,
But yeah.
I don't know, Jende, because between your story now with this and then Norris's history with Nick, maybe he really is the villain.
He is a villain. He literally
I believe
is a
you.
villain.
Yeah,
I
no, he
believe
definitely has villainous tendencies. But I think an underrated villain in this story is Javen.
He's not
And I'm
underrated.
sure
He's
Hmm.
not
I'm
a
sure
villain. He's
no,
a
he is
clown.
because
I still
some
stick
people
by
were
it. He's
acting
a
like he was
clown.
very much a hero, which I didn't understand. Look, I love everybody, but I do feel like we were just and we'll get into all of this when everybody's here, when everybody has a chance to respond. But we were just starting to get momentum as faithfuls. And then here comes Javen, just laser focused on Jendaya.
No,
Just
I agree with that.
laser
I agree with
focused.
that. I agree with that. So like everyone is like blaming Leak for the traitors when at the end they're all like jump piling on Leak. They're saying Leak is so stupid, Leak is so dumb. And like while that may be true in like within the context, we need to focus on how Javen was just as stupid and just as dumb as Leak because he literally held Keisha when he handed Keisha the win. Like I
Literally.
literally, like Keisha was not clown number 2 because Javen was clown number 1 and 2. He was both important.
No,
Literally.
literally. And there was a moment in that round table, the Carson round table, when I started it off, I said what I said. And in my back of my mind, I knew, okay, I knew Carson, I knew Keisha. I was like, okay, let me see what Keisha comes up with to try to spin Carson out of this. And then here comes Javen. Let me just do it for you.
Like,
And
no,
it's like, okay, well, now not only is that not gonna happen, but now Keisha gonna kill me.
like
So
literally, no, because as soon as he opened his mouth and was like, okay, we know Carson is obviously a traitor, but let's vote out Jandale because she is a not obvious traitor.
right.
I had to look around him. I was like, what? That made no sense. I was like, he must be a traitor. He
That's what
has to be.
that's what it was. It was like I was more upset when I found out that he was a faithful because it's like, what? Like, how could you possibly be like literally all Keisha had to say was that part. I agree. Hey, no blood whatsoever. It's like, oh my
Okay, but
Lord.
to be fair, I feel like even though I clown Javen a lot and stuff, and I say that like he's dumb, which he is, like at the same time, I think all the faithfuls were dumb, like as a collective. I think
I
we were
think so.
all
I think so. But
collectively.
I also do feel that the okay, I will just say this as one of the quiet people, sort of. I do feel like so much attention was put on us being quiet that there was never really okay, y'all are quiet. What are y'all observing? Because when it came down to the vote, the 4 quietest people are the ones who voted out the traitor, while the loudest people were just going around in circles.
Mhm.
But
So
the thing
maybe
is,
hmm?
but the thing that we've talked about this a lot on the podcast, where we're like, gosh, these faithfuls are just so clueless, like they're not paying attention. Because it's not like Keisha, Carson, and Justice weren't being obvious. Like there was
But that's not what I
oh,
I was
understand
not
that.
as obvious as those two, for the record.
No,
Oh
I
no,
agree,
definitely
like,
not.
Keisha. I
Definitely
agree.
not.
like
No, definitely not. But I think the
Keisha and
issue,
Justice both didn't vote Carson out, and no one ever pointed that out.
well, I will say this. The reason why because I was at the round table, I was like, okay, I'm very suspicious of Keisha. Because like logically, it just fit with Keisha's train of thought throughout the game. Like Carson has to be a traitor. So to not go with that, it was like, okay, I have only known you for like 5 hours, but I know you must be someone who's gonna eat this game up. And the only way you can be eating this game up with our track record is if you're a traitor. So, but at the same time, I was like, I can't say anything about that because this vote is gonna be close because Javen's like fully on the Jendaya train. It only came down to one vote. If I bring up Keisha, who knows if Leak, just off his treat or whatever, is like, oh, well, let me just vote Keisha. And then all of a sudden it's a tie. So I had to be 100% Team Carson. So
Mhm.
I think in the midst of the whole quiet versus loud thing, I wish more of an opportunity was taken to say, okay, let's bring the quiet people in instead of accusing them of being the traitors, because clearly we're just wrong time after time. Let's actually like listen to them and think, okay, well, what are y'all observing? Because oftentimes people who are the quietest are the ones who are actually taking stuff in. What
Right.
are y'all noticing? What are the patterns y'all are noticing? Instead of, oh, well, let's just go after the next quiet person, Jendaya, you know?
So here's my kind of counter to that is that we see kind of what you're saying, but we saw Baylor, who was kind of doing what you're saying everyone should have done. He's trying to take in information, he's gathering information, he's trying to talk it out with people. Did he ever directly accuse someone? No, he never really did. It was implied, very much so. So what was like I'm taking it back a little bit.
Well, I think Baylor was a victim of bad timing. I don't think there's anything that anybody could have like he was the only vote against him.
right.
Like there's nothing that any of us really could have done to sway that. And once he put up the wall of I'm just gonna be defensive and I'm just not gonna say anything and good
Yeah.
luck, it's like when we have nothing to grab on, that's not gonna do anything.
Mhm.
Power of
You
Oh,
know?
silence.
Baylor definitely set
Right.
himself up when he went to that wall of silence
Yeah.
because that
It's
just
like
gave me,
nobody
as a
can save you
trader,
at that point.
an
No, that's
excuse
true.
to be like, you're not helping me. I want you gone. Even if I think you're a faithful, that can be my excuse for why I'm getting rid of a faithful as a faithful or as a trader.
But in
Right.
that event, was there anything, because he had been for two roundtables in a row, people were accusing him. Was there anything he could have done to, you think, convince you guys to not vote him out?
Yes, he could have voted out the people that he suspected. His problem was he
Yeah.
was suspecting people, but then not actually coming to the round table with the information or
Right.
voting on the information,
Was that
which
like
is
the
what
day
made him
though?
suspicious. Heck, if I wasn't a trader, I actually really would have suspected him because he was behind the scenes saying things, trying to make other people talk for him, and at the round table, not saying those things.
And then people threw him under the bus.
Now,
So
Keisha,
it
Yes.
really didn't matter.
was that the Danny vote? How he was like going around saying Danny's name and then didn't even vote Danny? Was that like
That was the first time. And then it just happened again. And that's where I was able to capitalize on it. But I didn't even have to be the only one to capitalize on it. Somebody else noticed it. I think it was Nick, but somebody else noticed it. And I was able to jump on it because I noticed it too. But I was trying not to be the first one to bring up those things because, again, I didn't want to be the target. But the minute somebody else noticed the same thing I noticed, I just jumped on it as you guys, Norris noticed. And I used it because that it really, I mean, if I was a faithful, because that's how I played this game, is if I'm a faithful, what is suspicious behavior? That was definitely suspicious behavior.
So before we actually, Javen will actually be joining us. I have Javen and Leek in the waiting room. I'm waiting for Nick to join us. But before we get to them too, I wanna ask Josie and Emily. So you both have either played or hosted for both Jendea and Norris. So what as a viewer of the game or host of the game, how do you feel their performance lined up with how you've seen them in the past?
Well, Jendea is usually my number one in games. So I just felt like Jendea was trying to lay low and trying to play the social game via texting, but it wasn't it didn't go over well on camera as well because she was mostly probably on her phone because that's how she plays, is very social. I think that Jendea was unfortunately a victim of history. I think that Javen probably also has played a lot of games with her and just knows how she plays. And so he probably was stressed out. Nick, too. That's how Nick plays. Everything that Nick does comes from other games. So I think that both of them were just stressing out about Jendea because they know how she plays and she knows she's a good player. Norris have only played with once, so I haven't watched you play before, but I really enjoyed watching you. I think that my only real interaction with you is when you got me out because I was like doing too much. And I think that that's how you play. I think that you take charge, and I think that you played really well. I was rooting for you both.
Thank you.
And then I'll say kind of on like the opposite end of Josie, I feel like I never play with Jendea, or if I do, we just never work together. I don't know why, it's just what it is, but I think Jendea and I are very similar social players. So I think Jendea, she came out more towards the end than I wish we saw that in the beginning, because I think if maybe we had seen that in the beginning, the people wouldn't have latched on to what Javen was saying, because maybe they would have had more, because like you said, you only knew like 4 people, and obviously there were what, like 13 other people, 12 other people. So maybe if you had like been doing more with them, I think maybe the Javen stuff wouldn't have like not backfired, but wouldn't have like affected as much, because besides justice, I don't feel like you had as enough people on your side as like maybe we would have liked to see. So I think that was kind of like where, like Josie said, texting works. But I personally I'm more of like a talker. Like if I'm talking to someone on the phone, you're gonna get a lot more interaction with them than texting, and I think that's maybe kind of where you faltered. And then Norris, I've never played with Norris, but I posted Norris like 3 times at this point, and he always eats. But I remember rooting for you on this season. I think Josie went home. Yeah, Josie went home. No, the following season. But Norris did good. Like another one who was just quiet in the beginning. I think literally similar to Jindea. I think if we had heard more in the beginning, I think maybe people would have been like, you when Carson went home, it was like not it was kind of close, but not close. But I think just getting those numbers would have been even better for you.
I also think Jendea going into it, the four people that you did know are very strong personalities game wise, like Alicia, Nick, Javen, and then I've never played with Danny, but Danny's probably a strong personality too, I would assume. So I feel like no matter what, you didn't really go into the game with anyone that you could fully put trust into because all four of them, I'm assuming, have probably burnt you before because that's how they play. Love you guys, but that's how they play. They're villains. It's fine.
See,
I'm gonna let Leek, Javen, and Nick in. We're still continuing the conversation with Jendea and Norris real quick, and then we're gonna, get into everything with everyone, because I feel like at the point of the game that you guys went out, it's a very everyone involved type of conversation. So we'll get them in here now. All right. Let's see. Here they are. We have Javen, we have Nick, we have Leek. Welcome to the podcast. You guys there? There they are. There's Javen. There's Leek.
League, my bestie.
All right, and I guess there's Nick. Hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome. Nice to see you guys. Haven't seen you guys since February. But we're continuing continuing the conversation with Jendea and Norris right now. We've been talking about their journey through the game a little bit. But kind of continuing off of the question we just had before we get into you guys, Jendea. I felt like in the beginning of the game, speaking on your prior relationships, that you were trying to kind of put yourself out there with Danny and Javen because I noticed you were voting with them in the very beginning. Like you were taking their side when Javen was defending Danny and stuff. Was I right in noticing that?
Not really, to be honest. I think I was just more so leaning on what majority was doing in the beginning because I was like scared, like I would paint a target on myself if I like did anything against what everyone else was doing. And I also wanted to like keep my inner thoughts until later down, like the line. Like because as we saw, I like strongly suspected Nick G from like the beginning. And I didn't want to be dumb and say that like in the beginning of like all the chaos and stuff. So then he could have like flipped things around on me. So like I just was like going with whatever people said or what people like were thinking, especially like what Justice said. So like I was really like being in ways with love with Justice.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And Norris, I do have a question for you. Do you know the difference now between Puerto Rico and the Philippines?
I do, no thanks to a certain presidential candidate.
Oh, true.
But yes, I do. I mean, that was not my best moment. But we all have slip ups. So yeah.
So looking back at the game, Norris and Jendea, if you were to do it all over as faithfuls, who, and let's say we don't know who the traders are in a scenario like this, who would you want to work with after seeing their performance in this show?
I on Norris, you're on mute.
I was saying I would have loved to work with Jendea.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
was
we've
just about
talked
to
about
say,
that, but yeah.
I was just about to say that. I was about to say I would love to work with Jandia too.
Oh.
Oh, well, I know that's right. I'm on self-love.
No, I would love to work with Norris because his mind, literally, if we had chatted more, I think we could have like equally like put our brains together and actually talk the traitors. But like we just didn't. We just didn't work together. I wish I talked to Norris more. I wish I talked to Marissa and I wish I talked to Leek more as well. Like I think the four of us, like I think could have actually done something if we
I
had,
mean, we did do something.
yeah,
We just didn't
because
know it, like when we did it, but we did do something.
exactly. So like I think those people were people that I could have like aligned with and like actually get something moving. But as I said, I don't know why I was just like in the wrong breakout rooms each time. Like I don't know. I literally was just in the wrong breakout rooms.
Hmm. Okay.
Yeah, I echo that. I mean, I really think like the quiet, again, we talked about this before the three of y'all joined, but like I really do think the quiet people, if we had found a way to really band together more, I think that would have been great because we did have like the right train of thought. There was a lot of confusion happening on the louder side of things, but I feel like if we had found a way to, I don't know. I mean, I feel like it's tough because I think that at the end of the day, things ended up going the way that the traders wanted them to go. Um, but maybe if we had banded together, we could have pushed back a little more against the dominance of incorrect opinions.
So, well, something I do think is interesting is I think in a longer form game that Norris and Jindea, you guys actually probably would have connected just due to the fact that both of you were aligned with Justice. And Justice was in the trader chats defending both of you, trying to keep you guys both in as long as possible. And it only didn't happen, when Keisha put her foot down on Norris and was like, no, Norris just got Carson. We got to get rid of Norris now. So I think in a setting where we had more time to talk, that you guys probably would have naturally gravitated towards each other.
Maybe, but I probably would have been gone. I don't know if this made the episode, but um, right before it was around before we went after Carson, um, I was suspicious of it, and I talked a lot about it with Nick. And I had typed out a message to send to Justice saying, I think Carson is a traitor. I'm coming after him next round. And right as I was about to hit send, we were sent back to the waiting room.
Mm.
So if it had been like longer, mm, I'm glad it was the way it was, but
Yeah, I think if this was like not a calm game and was like a Discord game or like a text game, I think we would have probably worked together and like did something. But like if it was less like an ongoing calm game, I'm not quite sure.
So let me ask a question to Keisha. Keisha, if a situation happened where like Norris had messaged you or talked to you in a breakout room and said, "Hey, I think it's Carson," would you have set your sights on Norris for that reason? Like, out of context of the game, just in general, would that have been a reason for you to turn on Norris, or would you have rather protect yourself?
No, I same thing that happened with Danny when they went after or when they said they thought it was Justice. I wouldn't have immediately gone for Danny like I did, not given the opportunity. The opportunity presented itself, and I was like, this is a perfect opportunity to like keep Danny's name out there and get rid of him. So I think I would have made sure to like be savvy about the way I got Norris and not do it in a like immediate way because I would have suspected that Norris, if they told me, he would have told other people.
Mhm.
And so I wouldn't want that to be the reason why somebody's like, oh, he told Keisha it was a setup. Keisha killed him. It's Keisha, right? So that would have been because I'm suspicious of everything. So I would have been suspicious that it was a setup because I felt like Norris was partially onto me. And so I would have tried to like navigate it differently and just found a way to get the target on Norris and then eventually kill him if that didn't work.
Okay. All right. Well, while we have, the new three here, let me just cut you up, Leek, Javen, and Nick. So while we were in the waiting room, Leek, you were called stupid, Javen, you were called stupid, and Nick, you were called a villain. So we have a lot to talk about.
Not by me. Y'all were all good with me.
Started off.
Love you.
I need to
We also
refill.
haven't- we
Yeah,
also haven't
not by me
given-
either, guys. Not by me either.
We also haven't given Keisha the chance to do this, but every guest on the podcast, we give them the opportunity to come on, take a few minutes and just really walk through the game through their eyes. And the three of you, honestly, are three of our most different characters that we had on the show. Because we had Nick, who kind of was seen as the biggest threat almost, probably the whole season, just based off of his history and his relationships with everyone, and his physical power. He won like two or three shields, I think. So you kind of were a big threat this season. Javen was our underdog, a target from day one, viewed as, a threat because he had a duo from day one. And then we had Ike, who kind of just was dragged along knowing that he really was not paying attention the entire game. So, going into the game, what did it look like for you guys? What did you think about the cast and the move that you made? And what do you think ultimately led to your demise and losing the game literally right at the finish?
I guess I'll just go ahead and start. Yeah, I thought the cast was great. I mean, like you said, we all kind of, the three of us especially brought different dynamics, but I feel like the whole cast did in general. I mean, yeah, I did have some pre-connections going into it, and I feel like that can always either hurt your game or make it better. For me, it just seemed like all of my allies were just getting knocked out like one by one, so I kept having to adapt to like getting close to people that I hadn't really met with and like kind of reconnecting with Norris and us working together to try to figure out what was going on. Um, I do feel like I wish I would have kind of given more confessionals. I didn't. I mean, y'all killed it on confessionals. For me, I just didn't realize like how in depth I needed to be. So I felt like a lot of my game, a lot of people were like, "I'm not sure where Nick's even thinking." But I mean, I feel like my demise is just kind of like you mentioned. I feel like I just had a target the whole time of people just thinking I was a traitor. And I felt like that's why Keisha, Justice, and Carson just kind of kept me around because I was just like this known, like, oh, Nick just gives that traitor vibe. But also winning the shields because when I was starting to like call out Justice, I feel like I could have easily been killed. So I just like had to make sure I was winning things to stay alive. And I feel like that's what kind of kept me to the end. But I do feel like my demise was just like going down the wrong path. I think I was thinking it was Javen at one point, and I was trying to connect with Leek there at the end and let him know, like, hey, I know you're faithful, let's work together. And then that kind of turned on me as well. Just kind of, I looked suspicious doing stuff like that. But I mean, overall, I mean, I think it was a great game. Keisha, you killed it, by the way. I mean, the whole time I didn't even suspect you, so props to you.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I just played. Okay, so I only watched like one season of The Traders, and then I went and like hosted the season that I host like one Traders game. And so I still like coming in, I'm looking at like what 15 people that I don't know. So I feel like yeah, they might not have been close, but they at least like know of each other. I like just generally don't know any of them. So it's kind of hard to just read people. Like I kind of have good reads in like a Big Brother game, but in the Traders game where you're talking to them for like 5 minutes and then everyone is just shouting, like you don't know what to kind of like that. You see me throughout the game, like just throwing out random things like Baylor's name. And then like I only know Danny and Zendaya, and I definitely knew it wasn't Danny. So I'm like, okay, then I think it's Zendaya. Like I'm just going off, I'm grasping from straws here. Like a Jen, he just didn't know how the game kind of worked. I knew how the game worked at the end. Like we have to kind of come together to agree to either end it or see if there was a faithful. So my route towards the whole Zendaya thing, like I'm thinking towards endgame, but as I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh my God, this is such a bad strategy for like 9 people, right? There was like 9 people. I don't think it was a bad strategy in general. I just think it was bad timing. So I didn't realize how many people was in the game. I was just kind of throwing things out there. And as looking back at it, I'm like, what am I doing? Like, I didn't even want to look at the episodes. I also think like Zendaya was such an obvious faithful in the episodes, but like in the game, she wasn't really talking at all. And like maybe I think that Zendaya doesn't talk, but like Zendaya's loud as hell with me. So I'm thinking like, why is this girl quiet? So I don't know. I just was throwing things out there. But I mean, I had a really good time. I was drinking all day too. Like, I don't know if y'all see me, but every confession I had like my red cup. Every time I'm yelling, I'm like starting sipping on the red cup. So I'm not gonna excuse myself by saying I was drinking. Like, I knew what I was doing. I remember the whole day, but I definitely was like not fully sober.
Yeah.
Javen,
Are we drinking right now? That's the question.
Okay, so I was trying to drink right now, but I don't have any liquor. No. So and this is straight
Javen,
coke, y'all. I promise.
Javen, you should have done like me. I had my red solo cup. I just filled it with water and pretended to drink just so I
I
think
should have.
like I was
I
off.
should have. But that's like tempting, so I needed to just start drinking. You see me like in one of the challenge going to the liquor store, like you guys are like going about countries, and I'm like, can I get a vodka, please?
So, all right, Leek, you're up. But first, before you explain your game, Leek, are you high right now?
No, I'm not. I'm not high.
Oh,
But
wow.
during that game, I was high. So Jeremy hit me up at the last minute. I think he put it in the Mafia chat about who want to play a game. And I was like, shit, I'll play. I was already high and everything. And I don't remember most of that game at all. I just remember how I got played and how it ended and everything. So I don't remember. I didn't know nobody. I think the only person I was familiar with was Bill and Noel, and that was only because of Mafia, the game Mafia and stuff like that. That's the only people I was familiar with. Like, I surprised I lasted that long. It was times where I was just, because that was an 8 hour game. I was like, oh my God, won't they kill me? Won't they kill me? But, Keisha did, she ate that. It was a good, they got my ass.
So, and we'll talk more about the finale portion of it in a little bit, but actually, no, we'll talk about a little bit right now. So, well, before you guys
That's all
joined,
we have to talk about. It's
well,
the finale.
before you guys joined, we were talking about mostly Norris and Zendaya. We're talking about how, although it's blamed on Leak for the Faithfuls losing, they actually blame Javen. So I would love, we've heard you explain your game, but I would love if Zendaya and Norris are here to like kind of talk that through with you, Javen, and see the conversation that can be held there and what the differing viewpoints, or if you guys agree. But I think they both went away. So, but yeah, Javen, do you agree with that? Do you think you cost the Faithfuls the win?
No, I'm the only one in the end that's full on voting like justice. Like, yeah, I messed up on the whole Zendaya vote, but everyone was wrong. Zendaya mentioned like 10 different people in one of the episodes. Like we all said one traitor and one faithful. So I was right about one of them, wrong about the other. So what? So was everyone else. Like everyone was always on to one thing and not the other. That's just how the game was, Like I definitely think towards the end, like Leak, I love you, but we definitely lost because of Leak because I'm like, it's definitely not Nick. So I mean, they brought up a good point about one of the girls. So I was like, it's definitely justice. I mean, I feel like at that point, me, Nick, and Leak should have just stick together and jumped on her ass. But Leak, I feel like Leak was in the middle position and he just went with uh Keisha and Justice. I like almost forgot these names for a second. By the way, Keisha, I love you so much. I'm so proud of you.
Well, Jay, I got a question for you. Personal question. Do you have my number?
I don't have your. I don't think you ever gave me your number.
Okay, so why you calling on somebody that didn't send for you? You gotta take accountability. You're part of it, like it mainly was me, but we all play some part in it, we all play some part.
But I said it earlier. I was like, I
Okay,
think that we all.
We all play some parts.
I just wouldn't I wouldn't use like substance as an excuse as to why I'm like playing bad at the game, Like if I'm loud and wrong, I'm loud and wrong. So I mean, Link, you was out here saying you was high the whole time. I mean, you can be high but not stupid. I don't understand.
Listen, we lost. It is what it is. We lost. My fault, your fault, Nick fault, whoever. You only got one trade out.
Sure.
So Lee, do you agree or disagree with this statement? Did Javen cost it or did you cost it? What is your opinion?
My opinion is, looking back, definitely cost it. Because when you look at it, and you look at Keisha and Justice talking, they said they're gonna try to persuade me. I don't even know if I was in the room with them. I don't remember, but they didn't have to do no work. I just
No.
did if they
He
put
said
them.
Justice had to do no work with you, Leak.
At all.
Oh,
You just said,
I
okay.
don't know why, because Nick did inbox me saying he wanted to work with me. Then I traded him. I just turned on him just like that, and I was taking up with because I was like, why did Jay vote Zendaya? Obviously, she was a faithful. I just didn't get it and stuff like that. So that part of getting Jay, I was just defending Zendaya. That's all.
Well,
I really want to know why you guys weren't pushing for a girl more. Like, you guys really sat there and believed that there was 3 male traders?
credit to Nick. Nick did push
Because
for it.
Nick was trying, but what do you guys think needed to happen for to get that vote to switch? Because you're sitting here trying to push the vote 2 other males out. You really think that it was going to be 2 other males? You really thought it wasn't Justice or Keisha? What could have happened? What needed to happen?
What's the question?
What's gonna happen?
I was on about Justice towards the end. Once I was wrong about Janae, I'm like, okay, so there's the other one. Like, I was like, it's definitely one of them, but I was just wrong about Janae. It was just a little too late about her. But you see me trying to vote Jendaya. I mean, not Jendaya, Justice afterwards, but Leak, Keisha, and Justice kind of band together, and then me and Nick are kind of arguing. But you really see me at the end kind of just giving up, because I'm like, it's definitely not Nick. But we're the only 2 that's getting voted, and he's Nick is fooling coming for my ass, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm trying to at least survive, so at least do something, and he's fully coming at me, and I'm I'm kind of by myself. I'm laughing so much in the finale because I'm I cannot believe these people are actually thinking I'm a traitor, and I was just so loud and wrong throughout the whole season, and it's kind of funny. Not traitor Nick. So I was just, you see me laughing because I'm there's no way these people actually think I'm a traitor.
No, I think I made that comment while watching the finale too. I was like, all Javen can do is laugh because he just knows how wrong everyone is. But at the same point, it's I understand why everyone would have thought.
For sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I see the whole Carson thing. It was so bad, but I don't know. I feel if I was a traitor, I would just not be this obvious in defending Carson. If everyone is over here saying he's a traitor, as another traitor, I'll just kind of let him get the blame because I'm kind of a selfish traitor. Maybe I want all the money at the end. So if y'all think it's just him, then I'm not gonna defend somebody that's just my traitor partner. I'm just gonna let him have it. I'll be honest.
Norris?
Well, I think that to me was the issue. It wasn't so much that you were being obvious about it. It was more so maybe I should have when I first put Carson on the table at that round table, my plan was to say it, sit back and see, okay, who's gonna try and spin Carson out of this? Because I know he's gonna just throw out he's just gonna throw stuff at the wall. When you served up the defense on a silver platter, I was like, it's gotta be Javen. He's gotta be one of the traders. And then when Keisha co-signed it, it was okay, well, there you go. That's the 2 right there. I think that it wasn't so much oh, it would have been an obvious move that we're a trader. It was more so I wish the traders could have made the more obvious move or sat back and just let Carson go. You know what I'm saying?
I think that if you guys were paying attention to Keisha, Carson, and Justice, you would see the signs. Well, I
think it's not just about
challenge,
well, they did catch on with Carson.
It's not just about the signs though. It's also like I said before, it was a very close vote. There was no room to bring up Keisha or even I didn't suspect Justice, but there was no room. I mean, Nick brought up Justice, and that's part of the reason it was such a close vote. There was no room for error at that point because there were so few people left. It's if one more name comes up, that could be 2 people voting differently. Then Jendaya's gone. Somebody else is voted out. Probably still gonna be me killed. And then it's there's 3 traders out of 7 people.
So
what did you say? What were you gonna say, Nick?
Yeah, I have a question for you, Nick.
I was just gonna kind of, from my perspective, based off just watching this show in general, I feel there's usually one male trader, one female trader. So that was kind of just my logic. And okay, Carson was one, so there's for sure got to be another female trader. But I knew that there was three traders, and I was kind of jumping on the okay, well, Javen and Carson seemed really, really close, and so that kind of gave me a red flag. And I still thought it was Justice, but I just feel like Justice had already surrounded herself so well that there was going to be no way to really pull that way. And so just kind of like you saw at the end, like it was just kind of like me and Javen just trying to be like in safety mode at that point of just like I think it could be him, and I mean we kind of just lost it at that point. But it was hard just trying to get people all on the same page when it came to like Keisha and Justice because I do feel like they had kind of surrounded themselves pretty well.
I do
I
want to
think the one thing that I just want to mention, the one thing that people don't see all of is the work that was done in the breakout rooms. And on that vote, especially, part of the work that was done in the breakout rooms was there was a long discussion about Zendaya for the people that was in the breakout room with me and Javen. So for those people with Javen talking about Zendaya, it wasn't a shock. It wasn't a surprise. With me co-signing, talking about it too, it wasn't a shock and it wasn't a surprise. So that's why, like, bringing up the idea of like, why would you talk about Zendaya when we're talking about Carson? Wouldn't be such a like, oh my God, that's traitorous. It was like, no, that was what our breakout room was talking about. Your breakout room might have been talking about Carson. Our breakout room is talking about Zendaya. And it wouldn't be fair for Javon not to bring it up because then we'd be like doing the Bailey thing of like, why are we talking about this in a breakout room? But we had a whole discussion about it the whole time. And then we come in here and it's not brought up, which is why I was okay with jumping on it because it was a good excuse for me not to have to vote Carson. Because I knew that there was people who would support, knowing that we had this whole long discussion as to why Zendaya was clearly a traitor.
I was not in that breakout room, obviously.
Right.
But even I knew that Javen was gonna say something about me because I don't know, most of the games I played with Javen would have been Among Us games. And he had that glint in his eye that said, I'm about to say some BS. I'm about to say your name in some BS. And I was like, I can't wait to hear what he's going to say. And I just knew he would upset me. I knew it. I knew it.
I just I laugh when I think about like the Janaea thing because she's so funny that like I was genuinely like just accusing Zendaya out of nowhere is just so funny because no one really was accusing her, and I just like I was like it's definitely her because like Keisha was saying, like we were just talking about Zendaya. There was no one else. Like I understood that we have to bring up a name, but why not bring up just one more other name? Right. Her audio sounds good.
Yeah, Nick, we talked about that before you joined. We congratulate her because she has some nice audio.
I'm glad you have good audio.
I honestly think that like OT no shade, like I think a traitor was gonna win, period, because Keisha had really good connections and Justice had really good connections. I mean, Jandea and Norris thought that like they were cool with Justice and I was cool with Keisha. Like let's say if Jandea had left that round instead of Carson, they would have jumped on Carson and then they would have jumped on me or probably Nick after that, and even Keisha after that. I think Justice would have done really well, probably make it to the end and win.
So, but I actually have a question for we'll whoever just talked. Sorry, I didn't see you. But for Nick and Javen, Nick, in the final five, you voted for Javen. However, from my understanding, that was more of a survival thing than anything. I don't think I don't think you knew that Justice was getting votes. But had you voted for Justice, you and Javen would have been able to vote Justice out in that scenario. So I know you did it for survival, but had you moved past forward and actually voted for Justice like you had in the past with Javen in the final four, what would that have looked like for you? What would you have done?
That's tough. Yeah, I mean, I wish we would have come together on the Justice vote. Well, I knew it wasn't Leak, and so I would be kind of between Keisha and Javen. But like I was saying earlier, because of how close Carson and Javen were, that would have just been my only thing because I didn't really have anything against Keisha. Keisha voted me like one time, like the first round, and then she kind of explained herself, and I kind of just moved past that, and I never really saw any red flags from her other than just like stuff that like Jendaya had mentioned. But I'm honestly think I would just go Javen in that scenario, based off of how close he was to Carson.
Wait, that gives me an interesting question. Where did like the Javen Carson, like we kind of saw it, but Javen, like, why do you feel like y'all were like associated with each other so hard?
Like I lost Danny really early, and Carson was the only one that was kind of like matching my energy. Like he would make like just these silly comments with me, or he would be loud as fuck with me, and we were like drinking, and he would make sound effects, and I'm like, oh my God, this is like my Danny 2.0. And so I was like, oh my God, I'm just gonna stick by him. Like I genuinely thought he was funny. Um, we were
And
talking a
Carson,
lot behind, like in the breakout rooms, and we
yeah,
would text each other a lot in the Zoom
and
things too.
conversations like traders meetings, like defending Javen too. Like he
Yeah,
wanted to.
and I was noticing like I'm way too loud and I'm surviving. And I'm like, and I'm not dying. I'm like, it has to be someone that I'm really close with. So that's when I started thinking like it is Carson, because why am I alive? Like I feel like I should have died a long time ago, and like I'm surviving. I'm like saying whatever I'm saying and no one's killing me.
So that's an interesting point. Norris, I'll let you speak first, then I'll say what
Well,
I
I
think.
have a question on that point. So you were close with Carson and part of you suspected that he was a traitor. Did that factor into the fact that he was a traitor and that he had your back, but presumably, did that factor into your decision to defend him at that particular round table?
Honestly, I was just thinking like, let me just keep him because he's keeping me alive. Like I was really just trying to get to the end. And so I was like, if he's obviously keeping me alive, I'm gonna keep him a few rounds. But like you can tell, like on I think on the second episode, I my like one of my first few confessionals, I'm like, I think it's Carson, but like I gotta be careful because I just want to survive. So I think like I was genuinely trying to just make it to the end. The strategy was just wrong time. Like I should have done it at then, but I mean,
I
there's
also
nothing I could
I
do.
I agree with what Javen was saying because Norris, I mean, me and you did talk about how that was sus for Carson to mention the traders chat, but me knowing that he could be a traitor, I was close to Carson, so I didn't want to call him out. I didn't want to vote for him. I just wanted to keep him around because I knew he was keeping me alive. Um,
Right. I get that. And look, we're all good. Like the game's way over. But this goes back to what we were talking about before y'all came on about the mm, about sort of just the I understand that a big part of the conversation, because I watched the podcast, I tuned in, I listened. I was one of the loyal listeners, Wendy watchers, all of that. A big part of the conversation was that, and this is no shade to anybody, I love all y'all. But a big part of the conversation was that the quiet people were being selfish in the game and that we were putting our own journey to the end before the faithfuls doing well. And again, this is not shade, but I do think it's interesting. And I would love to hear what the podcasters think about this since, they expressed their thoughts so openly earlier. The fact that ultimately it was some of the louder people putting their own game before the faithfuls game that sort of led to the end game that we saw, while more of the quiet people did speak out more, which got a trader out, but also led to, my demise, Jendaya's ultimate demise, et cetera, et cetera. So I'd love to hear what y'all think about that.
Well, my opinion on that is and it's not, everyone, there's extroverts, there's introverts when it comes to these games, whether that's your personality outside of the game or not. It's just there is that in the game. But the quiet people, the introverts, early on, let the loud people take control of the game. And I think that's where the disconnect happens is because you can be quiet and do all your work in behind the scenes. But there was nothing, not nothing, but there was not enough work happening behind the scenes to where the loud people were like Carson, like Javen, were completely able to control the entire conversations every single roundtable.
Mm-hmm.
Until we see Norris, you spoke up and got Carson out, but we see how valuable your information was, but it just wasn't shared, which I understand, and I 100% get your point into where you don't know who you trust yet.
Well, it's
But
not just about trusting people. it's also about having space within the conversation. And this is what I bring up before about scapegoating the quiet players
Yes.
versus bringing them into the conversation. If the whole thing of the season is the quiet people could be the traitors, they're suspect, they're not speaking up, what room does that leave to Leak to speak up, to Marissa to speak up? If Marissa speaks up, all of a sudden Carson thinks that she's a traitor, or at
Mhm.
least says that. It's like what room is left there to contribute anything if the conversation has already been determined that the quiet people are the suspect ones. I said that was the whole thing about me suspecting Carson right away is that he was so like, oh, well, we got to look out for the quiet people because I'm loud and I just talk a lot and I just.
And no, I agree with your point. And I think the only scenario where that could have turned around is if, like you're saying, is if the faithfuls had banded, or not the faithfuls, the quiet people had banded together, which we didn't see happen, which probably would have happened in a different, longer format of the game.
Yeah.
And I understand that again, but also, we can look at our games and say, okay, this is what we did incorrectly. But also, I guess I'm just trying to, and this is not again me coming after any players, it's more so towards like, and it's not me coming after y'all either. It's just more so like challenging you all's opinions on the game to say like, okay, if we, have some of the louder players admitting that they did things to push their own game forward, which I understand. That's what a lot of us were doing in the early stages of the game. Why is that still falling on the quieter players? We should have banded together more when you have other players saying, okay, maybe like I kind of did put myself first in those latter stages of the game.
I think
I just want all of
Yes,
it to
I
be
agree. I
distributed
think
evenly.
part of what goes with that, if I may add, is it's not just the idea that people were putting it on the quiet players as much as the people they were labeling as quiet players, they were labeling as quiet because they weren't including them in their little alliances. And I always find it interesting in a traders game for people to have alliances, whether I'm playing as a trader or the one time I played as a faithful. You can't have alliances in a traders game because you don't know who is a trader or a faithful, so you don't know what team you're playing on. And so when there are alliances that people feel like they need to keep people, you might be either A, keeping a trader around so you're going to lose your money at the end, or if you're a trader and you're trying to keep these faithfuls around, then you might be sacrificing your other traders, which is almost what Justice did when she wouldn't vote for Jadea, when Jadea could have left and the Carson left instead. It worked out for us, but Carson didn't have to leave that round. And so I think it's a danger to play with alliances because then what you have is people who are quieter, who aren't in these quote unquote alliances, are the targets, but they're the people who might have the most valuable information to help in the faithfuls, if you're a faithful, or if you're a trader who's on the outside, that might be the reason why the traders get the downfall because you're not protecting your traders and your traders can lose that way too. So I think it's just a very interesting dynamic that board players want to have alliances in a traders game.
I really appreciate the perspective, Keisha, because I feel like watching your game specifically, everything you're saying right now is true to how we saw you in the show. You weren't in any alliances. You were working with the traders, but you were not in any alliances. Whereas we saw Carson, who was closely aligned with Nick. He was closely aligned with Javen. We saw Justice closely aligned with Jendea, closely aligned with Norris. So it's like, what do you think differentiate? Like, how would you like? Let's go to your game now. Let's talk about your game a little bit. What was your game plan going into it? How did you play? How did you mesh with the other traders? How did you differ? How did you not like it? How did you like it? I want to know about your game.
I loved it. Let's start there. Loved it, loved it, loved it. Obviously, I didn't know I was going to be a trader, and then I was brought in and immediately met Carson, and I was like, okay, we're going to have different energy, but that's good because we can probably work the room differently. And then it did work out, like because we were able to work different breakout rooms, bring information back. Like I said, I've played multiple trader games, and only once did I play with traders where they weren't working the room, they weren't getting information. So like when we came back to that room to talk about stuff, it was like they knew nothing, they had nothing to share. And I was like, how are we going to work? This is your team. In a traders game, we are the only people who absolutely know something about each other, which is that we're all traders. and that we can actually work together. No one else knows anything else that they can be that solid about. So for us to be able to work together, to share information the way we did, to work the rooms the way we did, and try to split up with the breakout rooms and to navigate them to make sure we were always in a room to get the information from the faithful. So we always knew if one of our names was getting thrown out. I loved it. So I really love working with Carson and Justice. I think the difference, though, for me and them is that I wouldn't closely tie myself to anyone, and that was my strategy, because you don't want to, get picked out as a traitor because of that, especially if for some reason I was trying to be too close to Carson or too close to Justice if Justice got picked. And the same way that Javen mentioned it and Jadea mentioned it, they went long because of people's alliances. So when people start realizing who's still alive, are they alive because their friend is a traitor? Nobody was going to look at me necessarily first, because I didn't know a lot of people in the cast, and say, oh, they're alive because Keisha's here. No, they're going to say they're alive because Justice is here, because it was her friends at the end, not people I knew. And so I was making sure that I was it didn't matter if I knew you or I didn't know you. Like, I knew Noelle. He was one of the few people I knew. I knew Danny. And they were two of the people who went earlier, right? And it wasn't on purpose they went earlier, but for me, I don't care if I know you or don't know you in a trader's game. If I'm a trader, you can go when the time is right, period. And I want to say that Leek, for me, wasn't around because he could be dragged to the end. I enjoyed talking to Leek, and I felt like Leek was not someone who suspected me. So for me, Leek being around was a benefit.
Wait, Keisha, this is news to me. You knew Danny before this game?
Yes.
Oh, wow. I did not know that.
Yeah. We played minis together. So that's why, if you notice in Danny's confessional, when Danny said, oh God, Keisha said my name, I'm in trouble. Oh yeah, we played minis together.
Oh, that makes a lot more sense now. Okay, that's actually really funny.
That's why I didn't vote for Danny the first round. I didn't want Danny to go.
Okay. Wow, I did not know that.
I
do have a question.
Oh, what's up, Nick?
You mentioned that Leek got called stupid, Javen got called stupid, and I got called a villain. I was just curious about who and why I was called a villain.
Well, I'm gonna let you know, Nick. This is all gonna be aired, so might as well spill it out now. The person who called all three of those people names was one person.
I feel like I know who, but I just wanted to know why.
Does she want to speak up?
I think they're shy, but I was here for when they said it, and I think it was more so they felt like because you did go after them in your own interest to protect yourselves, they felt like you were going to go after them regardless. And just that in this game, that was more villainous to do versus being faithful to go after the traitors.
Well, who said it? What they no business to speak on it? Who said it?
Okay, so I said it. They're taking it out of context, guys. Very much out of context.
There was context to it.
Okay, so let me give the background context again. So basically, I said that people, like viewers and stuff, have been saying that Leek was really stupid and dumb for letting the traitors win at the end. But I said that in Leek's defense, while it was stupid and dumb, that he should not be taking the full blame, because Javen was just as stupid and just as dumb. So that's done. But now going on to Nick. Nick, you were a villain, because in our DMs, you can't even deny you weren't a villain. Look, you're laughing, you're giggling, you're smiling, because it's true. Literally, I was trying to save you. I was like, vote with me. And you were like, yeah, I trust you. Please have my back. And I'm like, yeah, I have your back. And then what did you do? You went and voted me. Look at him. He's looking up in the sky, daydreaming.
Okay. In my defense, you came to me and you told me that you thought I was a traitor, but you didn't care because you wanted to get, I think, Javen out.
Yeah, because
that's what you were doing, though, right?
I did not care at that point. But at the same time, if someone is trying to help you, save you, because I still think, I don't even think you were a traitor. Well, yeah, I did think you were a traitor, but it's more so because in my head, you're just so villainous. And it's because it's true. Look what you did. The story.
I'm not a villain. I'm not a villain.
How could you say I'm not a villain?
I think you operate.
You are a villain.
And this is the problem. This is the problem when you have faithfuls who operate in the spirit of a traitor. That's what we saw with Baylor. That's what we saw with you, Nick. I mean,
exactly.
The reason I knew that Nick wasn't a traitor was because the conversations we had and the fact that I wasn't killed. I was like, okay, there's no way. But I understood why other people thought it because it's like you do be moving like a traitor.
Exactly,
You have that
exactly,
spirit about you.
Well,
exactly. And if I may, like tonight you were talking and you were saying that how, like, you were in self-preservation mode. Like, so in my head, you're like, okay, let's say you don't think this person is a traitor, you're still gonna vote them because you're not a traitor, you're saving yourself. But that's like taking a gun and shooting someone who is innocent. Like, literally, that's what
Well,
you were doing. You were killing innocent
there
people
was
to
a
save
chance.
yourself.
There was a
That's
chance. If I had the theory that there was going to be another female traitor, there was a chance that it could have been you. And I just knew in that moment it was either me or you. And so I just decided to vote you, hoping that maybe there is a chance, but I still was able to save myself. So that was
yeah,
kind of,
So
villain.
all
Literally.
I'm saying is I just look, this may be a little biased. The quiet people, we got a lot of smoke this season. I just want to see the people on the mic give some of that smoke to other players. That's all. I'm not going to do it because
I
I love
think that we've
everybody.
given
But
smoke to pretty much everybody. I feel like
I feel like
we
y'all
put the heat on
really,
everyone.
especially the round table when Baylor went home and Baylor was like edified as like the hero of the season. Everybody loved, despite the fact that he like shot himself in the foot with his game. Everybody acted like he was the damn hero. I just feel like a lot of us were scapegoated in that. And I thought we had sort of redeemed ourselves voting out Carson. I don't necessarily feel that's the energy we're getting at this moment.
well,
I also wanted to add on real quick too, like about what he said. Like Baylor was kind of given a hero edit, but like we're not gonna pretend like Baylor was really loud about Daniel. Like that's why we were like I was so confused in the podcast and how like everybody was saying like, why are we jumping Baylor? Well, we because he was like the head in charge of like jumping Daniel, and I thought that was
And
he
then
was
not
also
even voting
and then not even voting. So
Danielle.
we're like, okay. So, and then I also felt like at the time in the beginning, Baylor was throwing so many names out there. I'm like, yo, he's wilding. Like,
Right.
he's not even thinking straight. He's going curves. He's doing different directions. And bitch, I'm just trying to drive this car correctly. And you're not even at the red light. You on a full on green light. Like, he's going crazy.
We're
So I'm
doing
like,
wheelies.
and
yeah. So
you know,
I was confused. I'm like, okay, that's why we kind of voted him at the time, you know?
and
And that's
no,
what I'm saying. I feel like, okay, the faithfuls finally got a trader out. I thought maybe we get some credit, but it does seem like we're still all getting smoke from y'all. And I get it. I get it. Like it wasn't the best performance from any of us. But I'm just saying, I
well,
do feel like,
Some better than others, some
well,
worse
yeah,
than others.
I will say, Norris, it's funny that in person, in my view of it, it's funny that you're saying that because I feel like you get the credit for getting Carson out. You were the one.
but no, but my point though is that, and I appreciate that. Like, we love that. That's wonderful. I'm just saying I don't have 4 votes. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's 4 people who voted Carson out. And those people were the people that were slept on by the podcast.
Well, I'll say it here. I loved Marissa's game. I I think, she's not here to speak for herself.
We were really devastated when they decided to.
I thought Marissa was making the finale. I would have loved for Marissa to potentially win the game, but it is what it is. I think she was someone whose game that I was able to read transparent transparently. What's the word? I was able to
Yeah.
read as a host. There was no behind the scenes things that I needed to watch. I could see as the game was going on how her game was playing out, how she was playing. And I give her 100% credit. She played to the best of her ability, and she could have potentially won in the right finale scenario. Same with Norris.
I do.
Leak, I don't know about you. I don't know about you.
I do think if they would have got rid of me and kept Marissa, they probably could have got justice. Because before that, I think me, Javen, and Marissa was in the breakout room talking about working together. But once Marissa died, I thought it was Javen.
No, and I think Keisha and Justice made the absolute right choice in keeping you over Marissa because I think Marissa could have put the pieces of the puzzle together.
I agree.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say because I think it's really easy for us to sit here and be like, well, the traders, the faithful should have done this and they should have done that. They shouldn't have done this instead, and so they should have done this instead. And
It is.
we keep going in these circles of like these what ifs and these what ifs and these what ifs. But what it really boils down to is Keisha and Justice saw and anticipated what everyone was going to do each round. So
Right.
there was no way that you guys could have like worked around that, just because every move that Justin and Keisha made was planned knowing how each of the faithfuls were going to react and respond. So I think that by the time that Carson got out, there was probably no way that the faithfuls would have won at the end, just because that at that point everyone was so focused on everybody but Keisha and Justice. Like
And
there's
but that's my whole point. That's the breakthrough that I'm trying to get at. Because
and
Keisha and
that's
Justice
not to
played
your fault. That's not
no,
your
I'm
fault.
not saying it's
That's
to
not
a
everyone's
fault.
fault. It's
I
just
started this off by saying Keisha and Justice played a freaking amazing game.
yeah.
I mean, that's just like write that in stone. What I was trying to point out was that when players went into survival mode, that's what sort of sealed the game,
Yeah.
and those
Yes.
pieces, that foundation was
And
laid
that's
by
what
Keisha
I
and
was trying to
Justice.
get at
I'm just
too.
saying that it's, to me, it wasn't an inevitability that we were necessarily going to lose going into the Carson roundtable.
Right.
I think there was still a chance, and
Oh,
I
yeah.
think the moment when, and I said this before y'all joined, but the moment when Keisha jumped on the let's not vote out Carson, let's wait till the next round train, I think that's what sealed the game.
I think so. And I'm going to jump onto a conversation that happened before the other three joined. I think what we were saying before, what sealed the game is Javen, sorry, Javen, but Javen saying, let's wait on Carson, let's focus on Jendea, because that led directly into the next vote when Zendaya's not in her. So I think that is when the game was solidified, is when we decided to turn the heads, the eyes onto Zendaya.
Yeah.
And Norris, honestly, I think there's beauty in a quiet player, but I think in Zoom games, quiet players get often like overlooked because the point of a Zoom game is to be more loud and to be more entertaining. Whereas in a long game, you would get more praise for being a quiet player. But I think that Keisha played a very well quiet, like a very good quiet game. I think that you spoke when you needed to, but you observed everything, and that's how you were able to get to the end. And I also liked how you were like, I'm my ally, I'm my number one ally. If I got to vote a traitor out, so be it. And I think that is how you got to the end and how you won, in my opinion, being
And
more quiet on the
Exactly.
quiet
And
side,
that's what I would
as
even
opposed to
argue.
Carson.
I feel like, and this is something that I was actually, it was really interesting to hear, like from the traders, that Carson really was ultimately a liability to y'all.
Mhm.
As much as y'all enjoyed working with him, like I feel like once he was gone, it was a wrap because it's like, okay, now like we can
I agree.
fully just operate within our own power and we don't have like somebody making slip-ups like, is this in the traders chat?
Right.
Right.
I did not know what that meant.
But hold on, sorry, not to cut you off,
It's
but I
like,
see a little appearance from Claudine right
Yes, Cammy.
She's here.
She needs her edit.
She's coming.
She's such a
I want to add on to like, I don't think like when we were hard on quiet players, I'm not looking at Marissa and Norris. Like, yeah, they might have been quiet, but they weren't too quiet. Like, they spoke when they needed to. I was thinking about people that were just full on quiet, even in the breakout rooms. Like,
Right.
we will go into the breakout rooms. What are we doing?
Give
And
me
it's
leak.
quiet.
Yeah,
Give me
and
leak.
you,
Give me
You
So
can,
leak.
I
that's
think,
why you see me loud as hell. Like,
Steven,
even
who are you
coming at
talking
somebody.
about? Who are you
Huh?
talking about? Who are you
Baby,
talking
Leak.
Leak and
Leak.
Zendaya.
Well, no, 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 no,
Zendaya.
no, no, no. Let me just say this. Let me just say this. Let me just
Like,
say
they
this real quick.
weren't saying
I understand.
nothing.
I understand the point you're making. I'm just saying, like, for the whole thing to be, when the hell are y'all gonna speak up? For people to finally speak up, and then it'd be like, thanks, but we're gonna vote out. We're gonna go another way. It
Yeah,
just feels like
Yeah.
yeah,
there's a disingenuity.
yeah,
That might not
yeah.
be a word, but we're gonna make it now
That is a
in the
word.
sort of like continuing to say like, okay, well, when
Yeah.
it's like we 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 played our cards right that one time. We
Mm-hmm.
ate that one little thing,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah,
yeah,
I agree. Okay, let me hop on from Norris right now. Firstly, in the breakout rooms, I was vocal, but it's just that like because my mic was so bad, I think people were like talking over me. So that's why I kind of like shushed and stayed a little more quiet. But I was talking, as I said earlier, I was talking behind the scenes. I was like DMing people. I was like messaging a lot. So whereas I could have been more like vocal, I guess, in the breakout rooms, it wasn't like I didn't have an opinion. I was saying my opinion. I was like texting people my opinion and stuff like that. I mean, I'd have been texting you my opinion, but you weren't texting me either. So it's like at the same time, while you were loud with like other people, you were quiet with me. And I didn't go blindly accusing you. Like,
Well, I
Javen,
didn't think that I didn't think that in a Zoom game we should be texting our opinions. You know what I mean? Like we're supposed to be discussing what we think. Like I
okay,
can't give you
but
the
okay,
credit and
so
be
let
like,
me
you know
hop
what,
on for that.
Jendaya,
Let me
you
hop
ate.
on that. Let me
Hold
hop
on,
on
wait,
that.
hold on, because you've hopped on my back and I have
here goes
scoliosis before I
Jeremy.
got here. So I think that if we're texting our opinions, like
Mm-hmm.
how am I supposed to give the credit to Jendaya and
Mm-hmm.
like, oh my gosh, she's this great mastermind player? Like I'm not gonna give you the credit. You're sitting here calling me stupid and loud as hell before I even got here. Baby, you brought up 10 names, episode 3. You know what I mean? Like, and then on
Well,
top of that, hold on,
I feel
wait,
like the
real quick,
stupid
hold
thing
on.
did get. I'm just gonna
So
direct
and
you
hold
to
on. And like, yes, I'm very aware that like I fumbled the bag with the whole like Carson thing, but at the end of the day, them traders were so connected, they were gonna win, period. Like they were
Well,
gonna win, period.
mm-mm, mm-mm.
I
Okay,
And
wait,
then
fully
wait.
agree
no,
with it
no.
because
Let me
Let,
speak.
let,
Let
let,
me
let me
speak.
Jendaya,
say no.
you
Well,
didn't
hold
accuse
on.
anybody
It was
until
not a win
it
period.
was
It was a win,
here's
maybe a
here's the thing.
semicolon,
Jendaya
maybe
didn't
a
accuse
comma, but it was not
anybody.
a period
Jendaya
at
didn't
that point.
Jendaya didn't bring up anybody until I point at her, and then she's like, "Oh, it's Javen." And then Keisha jumps up, "Oh, it's Keisha." It's like she didn't even like. She waited until somebody said her name to then point at it because she wasn't. She was just throwing everyone out there.
Okay, so now
To
let
be
me
fair, that's what
let me
Carson did too.
come
But
out.
I'm
Oh,
not
my
even gonna
phone,
But
go
he's a
there.
my phone
traitor.
dropped.
Well,
I
I
want to point
know.
out
Well,
you
we
got
tried to
Let me
tell
speak.
you.
Carson. You
Let me
got
speak.
Carson. Javon did not prevent the Carson vote from going through. So Javon did not prevent you guys from getting a traitor. The traitor was got on that round. Just to point out.
Yeah.
Traitor.
Okay, but
Right.
the tracer was got on that wrong. Okay, so I wanna backtrack a little bit when you said that, I was texting, I should have been more vocal. But in that round, was it the Carson round or the round before, I think, with the Baylor round, when Baylor got voted out? All we were hearing was yapping. Nobody else got a chance to speak. It was just yap, yap, yap. When was I supposed to vocalize what I thought between? I think that was the order in the court session. I literally said order in the court because I wanted to speak. And I still didn't get the chance to speak because you all yapped for like 40 minutes. When
But
was I supposed to speak? What?
I
No,
mean,
no, no,
Marissa
no,
is
no, no.
quiet and she spoke.
Let me
Like
speak.
you
Let me
supposed to
speak.
start yelling.
Let
Like
me
bitch, we
speak.
all
Let
yelling,
me
bitch,
speak.
yow.
Let me speak. Because you were yapping and now you're yapping again. Like, hello, when am I supposed to speak? And then if I'm quiet now, you might call me a tracer here too. Like, let me speak. Let me say my piece.
Pause. And
Let
I
me
and
say my
I
piece.
want to say that too. I didn't accuse you because you were quiet. I didn't care about like the quiet people. Like I'm loud as hell. So obviously I'm gonna
That was the
over.
whole
Oh,
reason
No,
you
that's
didn't
I
go
no.
after
If you look
Zendaya.
at the episode, I was like, Zendaya's the only one that knew me and Daniel. I've always spoken to Jeremy and Emily, and they've always said like she's this big liar in Discord game. So I'm coming into the
Whoa,
thing thinking like,
No, 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 no,
Okay,
no, 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 no,
pause,
no, no. Hold
and
on,
pause.
hold
if
on. No, you
wait.
did
Okay, so
say it was
if
because
we go back, if
you
we go
did
back
say it
in the
was because
episode,
Zendaya
if we
was
go back
real
in the
no,
episode,
quiet. You
and I
said
said,
That's
and I
Zendaya was
said,
coming from
and
real
I
quiet.
Zendaya.
added on to that. I was like, she's the only one that knew me and Danny, so she probably went and told Carson that because
Okay, but
Carson
adding on,
was
you don't
really
put the
close.
sides on the plate
It
before
was
the
yes,
main
it
It's
dish.
was
The
two
giving
things
main
to
dish
why
was
okay,
it
so
that
wait,
wasn't because
Zendaya
she
so
was
was
wait, so wait, so
quiet.
wait,
quiet.
so wait,
it's
so wait,
The
giving
so wait,
main
villain.
dish
so
was
wait.
that Zendaya was
In
quiet.
the game itself, you said the first thing you said when you said my name was, I think this person is normally vocal, but they're a little too quiet here. Jandea, da 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 da. That's what you said there,
And then
right?
I was
So
like,
and
because
then
she knows
now,
me and
and then
Daniel, and
just
Carson
now,
was mad
about
close of
two
us.
minutes ago, you were like, oh how Jandea, you were quiet, you weren't adding anything, da da da. And now you're like, oh, I know you're accused liar
Pause.
in games. So
I
which one?
said that was not, it wasn't the only thing that I accused you of being quiet. And I
Uh-huh.
said there was multiple things to why I was accusing you. It wasn't because you
Uh-huh.
was quiet. Because you was loud as hell in them confessionals, but you was real quiet in the Zoom game. So that's why I'm
Okay,
like,
but
Again,
what's
again,
the point
again,
of
let's
that?
just
Like,
look, let's just lay this all out right here. Okay. The traders were feasting off of the loud people being wrong. If a quiet person whispers, Keisha,
You don't hear it.
they're gonna be gone. One, you're not gonna hear it, and two, the one person that does hear it, Keisha, is gonna be like, "Oh, let's get rid of them." And then guess
Exactly.
what? We're back to square one.
Exactly.
So that's
I
what I
just
mean
think
when I
it's
say
damn
there
if
was
you do,
no
damn if you
space.
don't.
And then on
Like,
top
And
of
that's
that,
we
on
why,
were
top of
look,
all
that,
that's
loud
David,
and wrong.
David,
just,
you keep
just real
saying that
quick.
you wanted like to hear me speak more. You wanted my opinions more. But if I was just on you said, oh, you also said that how I called 10 names episode 3. So
Yeah.
why would you want someone who called 10 names to be more vocal? So I could call 10 names.
I'd rather someone bring up so many names so we can at least try to pitch on something so we
No,
can
no,
like,
they're
no,
all
no,
you know
wrong,
what I
no,
mean?
it's
no.
not
Like
gonna
Because
work.
it
no, no,
didn't
no,
make
no, no, no,
sense
no.
for
That
us to
would not
just
have
sit
worked
here and
out.
like
That would not
Well,
have worked
let's
when
out.
I
That
let's
would
said
not
10
have worked
names was
out.
the fact
That
that you were
would not
when I
have
said that you
worked
said
out.
10
That
names,
would not have worked out.
my
That
point of
can't
you saying
work.
10 names
That can't
is the
work.
fact that
That can't work.
you named
That
10
cannot work.
people, you named 10
That
people and none of
cannot
them were
work.
traitors.
That
You
so
named the
cannot
whole
work.
cast.
That
but where
cannot
was that
work.
gonna get us? Where was that
Exactly. It
gonna
would
get
have
us?
got us
10 names?
nowhere. Because if
Again,
I
that would have
said
just
10
been
names,
running around in
if
Okay,
I
circles.
said
if
if I said
it
10
would have
names
gotten
and you
somewhere besides me saying, "Oh, Baylor is a traitor because of his name," like it would have brought us
Okay, so
something
it's better to
other
name
than
one
saying,
wrong name instead of 10?
like my thing is, she brought up 10 names and none of them were traitors. So
But I'm
I
but I
bring
saying
up
didn't
you
bring
one
brought
it
up
up
the
name.
to
wrong
y'all.
name
You know what I
That's
mean?
the thing. I didn't
Look,
bring it
look,
up to
look.
y'all.
You brought up
Let's
every name that you brought up. They were faithful.
Yeah,
I
but
would
okay,
I
but
said
say
let
it
me
in
just
my
hold on.
confessionals. So would you have rather me say it in public and look dumb like how you looked? Like I
well, no,
wasn't
no, no, no,
gonna
no,
do
no. Here's the
Well, no,
that.
no,
problem.
no.
I didn't mention so many names,
I
baby.
wasn't gonna
It's
Well,
do
dumb and
let
that.
me.
dumber. That's the
No, that's the
thing.
thing. You did not
Can I jump
mention.
in here real
You did
quick?
not
Right.
mention. You did not mention so
Pause.
many
Can I
names.
jump
Let
But
me
in?
just
one
point
name you
out the fact that
mentioned.
four
One
people
name you
voted
Order in the
out of the
mentioned was
court.
my
traders.
Order in
name,
the
and you were
court.
wrong.
Order in the
Order
court.
in the court.
Pause. Can I jump
Oh, now
in just to
Jeremy don't want us
say
being
I don't
loud.
think anybody was dumb. Nobody was stupid. We were playing a game, and we were definitely being manipulative as traders. But I think there was a lot of things where different actions could have maybe yielded different results, or just still made us get a win, but in a different way. But no one person was the reason why the traders won. And I think even at the very beginning of the game, when you have Justice voting for Noel because of a bagel, the fact that none of y'all pointed that out and harped on that and said, hey, maybe that's a traitor who's not giving us a reason why they're voting for somebody that's legit. Or maybe it's a faithful who's just not being helpful in the game. You all chose to ignore that and not vote a person out who's either not being helpful as a faithful or who is clearly a traitor trying to off vote. And so there's more than one thing at the end of the game that we're all pointing to that happened at the beginning of the game that contributed to why the traders made it to where they did and why we chose who we chose to make it to where they were. Because we recognized some of these battles that you guys have and we utilized that and we kept you in because we knew then you would go after each other and not us, and that those numbers would cross over and our measly 2 little votes would be stronger together and help us win.
Right. And I feel like you're making two very solid points there and two very correct points. They just don't necessarily go hand in hand because y'all played a masterful traders game, and that prevented a lot of us from speaking up. If things are already going in Baylor's favor by double digits, or not his favor, his anti-favor, by double digits, what room is there for anybody to speak up? He's still gonna be gone. That person who spoke up might get 2 votes, and then they're gonna be killed. Like I feel like I feel like in order to give you all the credit that you deserve for winning as traders, we have to acknowledge that you all played the game so well that there wasn't necessarily much room based on the game that you played and the way that you set it up and the way that you sort of took advantage of some of the more the less the faithfuls who sort of were going around in circles. There wasn't much room for any opposition to take a foothold.
Correct. And that's my point, which is why when we
Right.
say it's not because anybody was dumb or stupid or the names that you're calling each other. I'm just not a fan of people calling each other names when I think it was
I
just a
ain't
matter
calling
of
nobody else that
gameplay.
yet.
I know. When I think it's a matter of gameplay and people were trying to play the best game they could, but we really were covering the entire Zoom area and the whole area to make sure to prevent y'all from playing the best game you could play. That's my
Right.
point.
And I don't think, well, I will say this as someone who was here like before all this jumped out, I do feel like Zendaya's comments were sort of blown up in the name of drama. I don't feel like it was necessarily a thing of like
Yeah.
Javen and
No,
Leek and Nick
no,
are just
okay.
the dumbest
Okay, so
people in
basically
existence. They're the dumbest
I
people ever in the existence of humanity.
I
It was
do
not
stand.
that.
No,
It's
the
been
thing is,
done.
I do
They like
stand
this.
by the fact. I do stand by the fact that I do think some people play dumb and stupid, but at the same time, I think we all collectively, as faithfuls, were not the best. We were all dumb. Like I'm not just saying, "Oh, Javen is an idiot." I'm saying Javen is an idiot, but we were all idiots. But he was a bigger idiot than most of us, and Leek was a bigger
Call us
idiot
all
than all of us.
idiots. I
Like
just
I'm
think
saying
that
that. Like I'm not saying it like in like a serious way. Like it was a game for fun. Like I'm
Okay.
jokingly, lovingly calling
yes,
them dumb.
it was for fun. And I don't think we were all idiots. I don't think anybody was necessarily an idiot. I think people had,
I do.
idiotic moments. But I do feel like ultimately at the end of the day, like we all did the best we could with what we got.
Yeah,
Okay. Oh,
exactly.
we did the best we could. And
Exactly.
I feel like when I say like the game was clinched by like when the Carson roundtable happened, I'm not saying Javen sold the game up the creek. I'm not saying any of that. I'm just saying that that was the last moment. Like that was like when you're driving and you're on the highway and like you realize just 1 second too late and you're in the left lane, you realize 1 second too late that you were supposed to get off at that exit. That's what I'm saying. Now, there could have been 1,000 moments before that when you realize, oh, shoot, my exit's coming up. That was just the last moment. At that point, there's no going back. That's all I was saying.
So let me
No,
ask this. Let me ask this. After playing this game, and Josie and Emily, you can hop on this too. Is mob mentality the way to go with this game?
yes, yes, 100%. A hundred
I
percent.
I
I don't
think
think
I think
so.
it's I'll just say this. I'm sorry, but I think the thing that was most ignored in this game was the value of silence.
I
I
I
agree.
agree with
think
that.
that
I agree.
there are certain moments where, and maybe Baylor was on to something with this, with the vow of silence. I think there's moments where you sort of have to let the void be filled.
Mhm.
And I think one of the many credits to Keisha and Justice is that they knew somebody was gonna fill the void,
Mhm.
and then they would have the opportunity to co-sign it or jump on it and
Yeah.
they'd be good.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just have to let the awkward silence sit there and see, okay, who's gonna speak up? Who has to speak up? Force them to decide, do we really want to keep Carson or are we just gonna let it go this way? Or do we really want to like, push things a certain way? Or are we just gonna, like that was to me a big part of why we lost the game.
I think as a traitor, mob mentality goes such a long way. Like the person who's the loudest in the room, like most of the times, and who could like persuade like at least two people to follow them, could persuade like the entire room to follow them. And like as a traitor, I would like try and capitalize on that a
Well,
lot. So I think if you're a traitor, mob mentality is great to you because I think we saw it a lot in this game. Like with the Baylor vote, we saw it a little bit with the Danny vote. We saw it with my vote, thanks to someone in this call. But like, I think
you're
it
welcome.
did go a long way.
Well, yes. As a
I
trader, of course, mob mentality helps out. I don't deny Keisha would deny that at all. But as faithfuls, when everybody is hopping on one thing, would you not suspect that everybody hopping on one thing would also mean that every trader is hopping on one thing?
Mhm.
That was, but
I think more times than not, when you watch Zoom games, the winner is someone who has sat back and kept their mouth shut. More times than not, because the loud people get picked off quickly, or they're just wrong in any format. Survivor, The Challenge, Big Brother, Traders, any format. I don't even watch these shows, and I know this. And so it's like there's beauty in the silence. It is very much like just sit back, keep your mouth shut, let the other people run their mouths, run their foot in their mouth, dig their own hole, and you'll get to the end. And you're quiet, you're observing. So you're able to make the decisions and get people on your side, which Jinde is very good at, I think, with social game. Nick is very good at social game as well, and getting people do what they want, but they're also usually right. Nick and Janaea.
I feel like
That's the only
for
compliment you'll get, Nick.
appreciate that. I don't know who you are, but thank you.
Oh, geez.
You're
So
welcome.
for
You're
me,
welcome.
I feel like starting out, I was just kind of, I mean, I know everyone was going Danny, but I'm pretty sure I think I just like talked about my vote for justice. I was just kind of going off my gut, and like if people want to believe what I have to say, I knew I was a faithful, so I'm just going to voice my opinion as far as like here's why I'm voting for someone. But then it did turn into later on where I was just trying to be in survival mode, like the Jendaya vote. But I mean, just starting out, like I think as faithfuls, you just need to go with your gut and trust your instincts as far as like the vote you're feeling, and if people want to believe that, they can believe that.
All right. I think that we could sit for hours and go back and forth talking about what ifs and what should have been and what should have been. But yeah, you guys made it as far as you possibly can this season. So what would you, I have a couple questions. In future, there's been talks of future seasons, nothing's been confirmed yet. But what would you guys like to see in a future season? Whether it's a format, a theme, a style,
What about the game could
and
be
what would you
different to help?
different or help it kind of run more smoothly? And what kind of advice would you give to future players that could possibly be playing a future season down the line? And when I say like themes and formats, like that means like, would you like to see duos, teams, like heroes or
Not too
civilians,
much,
stuff like
not too
that,
much. Not too,
stuff like
the
that.
question's cut off. The question's cut
Like
off.
stuff like that. That's what I'm asking. Like, what would you like to see in the future if possibly this happened again?
Don't do a duos or teams traders
Absolutely,
game.
yeah.
Let's start there.
No
I
duo.
think it got to be like people that just generally don't know each other. I mean, I've seen it in like the own game that I've hosted. Like Emily and Jeremy got fully jumped because they didn't even know them. And
Right.
like people were coming in here like calling Nick a villain. And I don't even know Nick's last name. Like people had like already like drama from other games and bringing up games from like 5 years ago. I'm like, what the hell? So I think it got to be people that just generally don't know each other because I think that it was a big factor in the beginning of the game. Like some people was looking at certain people from how they played in a Big Brother game or in a Survivor game. And I'm like, okay.
And Javen, I do agree with that point. However, if you look at the, Peacock, the traders, you see the real show, they have pre-relationships.
Yeah, weren't Parvati and Sandra on the same season?
Right. It's like you
Yeah.
see the Big Brother players band together, the Survivor players band together, the Real Housewives band together. So it's kind of the traders to me is a format where pre-relationships are allowed to affect the game. I don't
I
know.
think that's true, but I think also with that season, the reason why it worked for as long as it did is because they all brought different energies to the game.
Right.
Like the Survivor players and the Real Housewives were on completely opposite ends
Yes.
of the spectrum when it came to like gameplay. The Survivor players were running circles around the Real Housewives, but at the same time, the Real Housewives were running circles around the gamers when it came to like speaking up at the round tables because they know how to operate in those high pressure situations. They know how to operate when everyone's looking at them and they have to fight for their lives. I think that maybe if there's a way to get more of a mix of experience, I don't know necessarily how that would happen, but just to bring in like, maybe like a mix of like loud personalities, maybe some people who like were loud and did well, and maybe some people who were loud and like crashed out early. Just a different, like a mix of that type as opposed to just a mix of like people who don't
No,
know each other.
and Norris, I 100% agree with that sentiment. And this is no shade to our last minute fill-ins, which were Leek, Noel, Alicia, and Theo.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But with the original cast, I think it would have been a completely different game. I love how this season turned out, but
I'm glad to hear that.
yes, I love how the season turned out. I have no complaints about the fill-ins or anything. But I think to your sentiment with the cast we had originally chosen, that it would have been a different game and where there would have been more vocal people. Unfortunately, the people that were last minute dropouts were people that would have been more vocal. in
Yeah.
my opinion as the host. And I agree with your sentiment. I think there would have been it would have benefited us to have people
Like Ava and Dominic.
like
who are supposed to be
Ava,
on
like Dominic, who are supposed to be on the cast, that would have been able to help shape the game into a different views, add different perspectives. Whereas the last minute fill-ins were unfortunately not to their demise, well, to their demise, but not to
their detriment.
their
Be
detriment.
careful, you got one of them here.
Right? No shade to Leak,
Production
but
always production always
Noel, Alicia, and Theo are quiet players. Like, just they
yeah,
are. All three of them
no,
are quiet, but they're
and
deadly, but they're quiet. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
They were more quiet people, and they were in the final cast as last minute additions, and we saw how that played out. The more quiet people didn't benefit the faithfuls.
Yeah.
And that's no shade to the people that were on the original cast, like Norris, like Nick, like Jendea, like Javen. The people and maybe this is a hot take. I mean, I'm like 4 glasses in by now, but the fill-ins are what cost the faithfuls the game.
Well, no.
Well,
I
Noel,
would have to
Alicia, and
disagree
Theo
with
are dead
that.
space players.
I mean, Alicia and Theo didn't make it past what, episode 2 or 3?
But that's what
Right.
I'm saying. So they didn't
Yeah.
offer any opinions to the roundtable.
And I understand that. Well, first of all, I think maybe a good thing, I don't remember if we did this because it was so long ago, but maybe like prompts for confessionals just to
Oh yeah,
get people's minds turning. Like,
yes,
I didn't
I
think
agree.
about that. Maybe that's like something I should be aware of. Maybe that's something I should speak about at the round table.
yes.
That could be good, but I think also just like, I mean, you're not always gonna have like a blockbuster season. And that's like we did our best. We all, we tried to produce something entertaining. But sometimes it just, you could have the best cast in the world. I'm not saying that was us, but you could have the best cast in the world and it could still be, like
But Jeremy, you know,
just because of how things happen. I mean,
game.
I personally thought Leak was fun,
That's my
you
first
know.
game.
Yeah,
I
and
mean,
I
It was
thought
my
I
first
think
game.
here's the other thing. At the end of the day, I feel like hmm, I feel like sometimes we just got to push the product, regardless of how it turns out. We just gotta, even if we gotta lie and say this is entertaining, we just gotta do that. Cause like if y'all as production push like the narrative that this is like a season, that's how it's gonna be viewed.
Right.
That's why like Mary Cosby got in so much trouble for on on Watch What Happens Live and saying she fell asleep watching Real Housewives. Like sometimes you just gotta lie until we make it, you know.
But I think
I have to
done
say, my
nothing but
friends
speak
enjoyed watching the
highly.
season who don't do orgs, don't do this at all. They enjoyed watching even before they knew I won, because I wouldn't tell them if I won or lost or if I flopped. I just said you have to watch and find out yourself. They enjoyed it. They enjoyed a lot of people. They talked to me about different people throughout the season as they were watching, and they were like, "Oh, this person, they're hilarious. Da da da. This thing that happened, blah blah blah." They really got into it and enjoyed talking about it. So I think it was a great season, especially for people who don't even watch orgs, and for my friends who do watch orgs. So they enjoyed it. So I think
I think the cast was well-rounded from lots of different communities. Like you have Javen and Danny from Instagram, you have Noel and from Twitter, and Theo's kind of from Twitter, I guess. And then there were Discord people. I mean,
And people
Justice
not
has
from
only ever played. Yeah, Justice has never played ever. Like she didn't know anybody. She knew Jendea because we played Carlos's game together. But
Thought she knew me.
but she like never logged in. Like she literally never logged in. And then as far as like org people, like you have Nick and Jindea who don't trust each other. Like you have Carson who's chaotic as hell. Like Baylor's kind of not really in it. Like I do think that the cast was well rounded. I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
I don't think anybody really had like a strong advantage except for maybe Javen and Danny, but two people can't change the game.
and yeah. Don't mistake me saying that the quiet people didn't bring detailed explanations or like informative information to the group. Everybody brought entertainment. There wasn't anybody that I was not pleased with. Everybody brought something to the table in terms of the cast. Even the last minute additions, they all brought something. So it's not that they weren't entertaining at all. It was just that the last minute additions were more quiet players. Not that they were entertaining,
Yeah.
but they just didn't bring anything to help the faithfuls, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And Noel's a
to-
really good player. Like Noel wins all the time. So I mean, it was good replacement. He's just quiet.
Oh yeah. No, Noel.
No, Noel going. I think you guys talked about it in the podcast. You guys were like, "Oh, Keisha's letting Justice get her way by getting rid of Noel and not someone else." When actually, for me, it was a good kill for Noel. I didn't have to say anything because for me, I knew I wanted Noel to go, but Justice talked about it. Again, that's how I did during the game. If somebody else said the thing I wanted, I don't have to speak on it. I can just let it happen, and it works to my benefit. Yeah. Justice was very strong on trying to find out who was I close to, who do I want to stay, who do I want to work with, and I'm like, while you're my trader and I think we're working together, I'm not going to tell you that because you might be trying to en route and get this by yourself. But it actually was a very smart move for my game to get Noel to leave because Noel was one of the few people in the cast who knew me and one of the few people in the cast who I thought could peg me for being a trader based on how I was playing. And then when he came on the podcast, he said it exactly it. He was like, he's just very quiet but lethal or something like that. I'm like, yep, Noel would have pegged me. If he let him stay long enough, Noel would have said it and would have talked in those breakout rooms and got people to believe that I was a traitor.
So Keisha, you would rather play with people you don't know than people you have a reputation with?
Absolutely. But I have played with people I know and still won. But it is a lot easier to play with people you don't know because people you know will eventually do the Zendaya thing or the Javon thing and just be like, oh, because you're being quiet or because you're doing this, I know you're good at this game. You must be the traitor in the game, you know? So you get tagged with the reputation.
Exactly. Because I think, like, mind you, if like Javen wasn't in the cast and I was like playing the exact same game I played and I was quiet, I think I could have been viewed as a more of a like a Marissa type. But because Javen was there, like he was basically saying, oh yeah, Jandea is too quiet because he knew me, or well, at least he had a perception of me that is loud. Like if he wasn't there, no one would have brought up my name. He said that actually. He said no one was bringing up my name, and that's because no one there knew me. But because he like knew something about me or whatever, that's the only reason I got voted out.
So let me pose the question to you, Jendaya, and Norris as well. Do you guys think you would have made a good trader?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. I have won like 3 Traitors games, all when I've been the traitor. I love being the traitor. I think I would have definitely.
What did you have to say, Nick?
Didn't he vote you out?
Yeah, no one's let me talk.
Oh, why do you go up?
Well,
Well, okay, so let me pose a question.
Nick.
I'll ask it to Leek and Nick, the same question I just asked. Javen I don't know if he's here or not.
I'm here.
Okay. So how do you guys think you would have fared as traders?
I think I would have been a good one. I feel like a lot of the times in the round tables, I was kind of influential. Like I'm really social. That's like one of my strongest suits in games. Like I know how to make people feel like they're like my best friends. So I definitely would have taken a route as the other traders where they were like connecting with other people and making sure like, I wouldn't have been thought about for sure. Like I definitely think I would have been a good trader. I really wanted to be a trader. I didn't want to be a faithful child. I think it's just easier for a trader to just play the game rather than a faithful. Like it's very obvious.
Wait, Javen. So do you think if you were a trader and Danny was not, do you think you would have told Danny?
I would have never told Danny. I would have never told Danny. I think that also like I love Daniel so much, but Daniel would have not caught on to like I would have not told Danny. I think it would have been so funny on the episodes to watch like this duo,
Right.
like these reclose, and one of them is a trader and they didn't tell the other, and they're
Do
like,
you think Danny would have told you if he was a trader?
No, we're like such like gamers. We definitely like keep the integrity of the game. We would have not disrespected you guys, and I think that would have been not fair for the other faithfuls, and like it would have been so fun.
I think that was an interesting point too, because I don't know how much it was aired. I should have known because I'm the editor, but Keisha made a very big point about no. Keisha was trying to spin the idea that Bill was told information by Carson.
Oh,
And Javen, I don't think this was aired, but Javen made it a point to say, I think the cast respects me and the production enough to not play that kind of game.
I agree. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I still stand by that. I think that people like Jeremy, the whole Discord, like they're very loyal to the community. Like I think JSR is a big loyal franchise or community. I think no one, like everyone loves you, Jeremy, and even like Emily and Carlos. Like I don't think they would have went and disrespected uh any of you guys. I think it wouldn't make the game fun. Like why are we sitting here, telling each other behind the scenes? It's boring.
And yeah, I agree with your sentiment. I appreciate keeping.
I agree with it too, but I've also played trader games where traders tell faithfuls they're traders to make it to the.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that's horrible.
Exactly. I agree.
For 2 hours.
Because they're in alliances.
I've been at this for 2 hours now, so I feel like we've covered almost everything that we needed to cover. Does anybody have any final remarks? Anything else they want to get off their chest before we finish and call this?
I would love to hear y'all's final remarks.
Go ahead, Nick.
Let Nick talk.
Well, I was just gonna answer your original question about like next season, like what could be better, what could be different. Because I do think it is hard for the faithfuls in a trader game because you're just like shooting blind, just hoping that you land on something. But I do think like the anonymous shields, like that could be played up some more as far as like someone winning a shield and we don't know who it is, and then a trader tries to attack them, and then it's a failed attack, and like the faithfuls
I
have
think
more
that
of a
was
chance.
something that we talked about as well, about how we
I think that would just kind of add a different layer to it. But I also like the little like sabotage things they all added in the missions. I feel like adding more of that, kind of like me calling out like Carson, like stuff like that, kind of raise a red flag and kind of help the faithfuls a little bit. So just kind of more of those would be cool. But I mean, I thought the season itself was just great. And then did you ask another question, Jeremy, about, I think you were asking something about Javen and me.
How would you have done as a trader?
Oh yeah.
Oh, with this cast, terrible. Because I feel like already people just assumed I was walking in. I feel like everyone would just assume when they saw the cast, like, oh, Nick's a traitor. Now, in a cast of people I don't know, I think it would be a whole different ball game for me. I mean, I would have just kind of stayed quiet, just chilled. But in here, it wouldn't have been good.
Yeah, I mean, even then, like people are saying villain Nick, and I'm like, this is just a kid that smiles like every like 2 to 5 seconds. I'm confused to why we're calling him a villain, but
That's a part of my plan, Javen.
there we go.
Right. And I think
I just wanted to keep around the cute face. So I was like, oh, we can't keep
Oh, okay. Yeah,
It's okay. Let him get the shield. But no, I was going to add to what Nick said in terms of my recommendation. I don't recall if you guys ever told the cast after, and I think it should be after the challenge, but if you told the cast after the challenge that there was a challenge for the traders to get things incorrectly. You don't have to say it's money motivated or whatever, but like to somehow allude to that the traders have motivation to get things wrong, because that challenge was never discussed or used later in the discussion about who could or couldn't be a trader, because I don't think they knew that we had that offer. And so it wasn't part of the strategy. But I think if they knew, it might have had more of a discussion about, wait, which flags were wrong? What do we think? What do we think? Obviously, it would have paid Carson, but he got out shortly after anyway. But like, again, Carson was doing all kinds of stuff, like talking about a traders chat in the middle of the game when nobody knew about traders. I didn't even know a traders chat existed. So that's why you don't see me pegged at all on the screen. I look just as shocked at all y'all. So I'm like, what's this man talking about? Me, Carson, nor Justice knew anything about that chat.
no.
So he was like the traders chat. I was like, okay, so he's making up stuff. That's cool. But that's
I
a dumb
also
thing to
think like
make
if
up.
we knew
And I'm like, oh no,
beforehand,
there's really a chat.
if we knew beforehand not to text at all, like I think a lot of the game would probably play differently because we were all some of us was texting other people, and like I remember in one of the episodes, like Keisha was like, I think you guys ended up texting you and Justice or something like that for one of the one. It's like kind of controlled the vote to kind of vote together, and like Jandea said she texted, I texted, like Nick texted, like we were all like kind of texting. So I think that we like, I mean, I didn't think that was a rule. I don't know if it's a rule in other
No.
traders game. I've never played traders. But I think maybe that probably would change things too. I don't know.
No,
I've played games where you're not supposed to text and everyone texts anyway, to be honest. Like
no,
straight up.
no, I do agree. As a host, personally, and now with hindsight, I know it was never mentioned, I didn't expect people to be DMing each other the whole entire game. Charlie didn't expect it. Emily didn't expect it. We just didn't see it. I didn't know how much was actually happening until the editing process of the DMs.
I think we also kind of realized like a little bit halfway through the game where we're like, oh, so much is happening behind the scenes that we're not seeing on camera.
And yeah, we didn't enforce that, so that is to our fault. And to an extent, what was I gonna say? Well, I was gonna say something else. One second.
I don't even think it's to a fault, Jeremy. I think it's just like an extra layer that maybe made like editing hard. I think it's like if you were only talking on Zoom, it probably would have been more interesting to edit. But like that's a lot of footage to come through. And then I was gonna say, I think there's like I was gonna ask you guys, do you kind of feel like some of the breakout rooms going into them was luck being like who you're gonna end up with? That was
Yeah.
kind of like the question I was gonna ask as well, actually.
That's a good point.
I don't know. I play minis all the time, so I'm used to navigating breakout rooms and bouncing around. So for me, if you're on a computer, you can choose where you go. You don't have to choose the accept if you know that. But I know not everybody knows that. But you don't have to accept the room that it offers you because it's just the last room you were in. So like if I wanted to go to the last room I was in, I chose to go strategically if I wanted to talk to those people. But if I knew I didn't want to talk to those people, I knew not to accept and go to a different room. And I could see who was in what room. So I knew who was talking to who. And I used that as part of my strategy to pay attention to who was talking to who and then also decide where to go.
That's
Oh
a
yeah,
good
I was
point because
watching those rooms. Oh, I have the
think
rooms up. That was part of my thing. I was paying attention to who was communicating too and using that.
that's a good point because I definitely think that when I brought up the whole thing with Zendaya, I was in a room full of traders, like bringing up Zendaya, and like no one kind of stopped me. So that's why I came into the discussion table now. But like, if let's say if I was in a room with Norris or other people that was kind of like on the Zendaya side, like they could have been like, Javen, you're wild, and like let's stay focused and like, come on, like you know what I mean? Like, I definitely think that being in a room with certain people definitely affects like the game, you know. But that's not really just that's us.
So
Well,
then,
But
yeah, and on that point, I think also just encouraging like um, us to all sort of blossom in our confessionals. Because I think that no matter how the game goes, if the confessionals are like on point, then it's gonna be great to watch. It could be
I
the
do.
most boring game in history, but if you have some good commentary, it's gonna be a hit. I think that's like a big thing just to bring even people who are more quiet out of their comfort zone. Like, hey, just send us some thoughts, about like, and even if people do have conversations, just like make sure you recap it, et cetera,
I
et
do have
cetera.
a question. Um, I do know that there's been one individual here that's been picked on a lot by production, and so I didn't know if Leak wanted to do a live performance of his diss track
No,
on
we can
no,
do
production or not. I don't know if you're
no,
prepared.
Leak, leak,
no,
leak, leak,
no.
So
leak.
before we do
Lee,
that though, I was gonna add while we're adding just ideas, I was gonna say if you're gonna have a traders chat, can you inform the traders before they're on the Zoom so they don't slip up and see something
Yeah.
thinking everybody's
please
saying
don't,
business?
please don't, please don't, please don't.
No, no. And I will admit that was 100% in Carson's defense. That was my fault. In
Still the
anticipation,
funniest moment.
right? It is the funniest moment, but in anticipation of the game and when the game was going on, as a host, I didn't realize how much behind the scenes was going on. I didn't know that people were actually DMing each other. So when I saw that like in the first couple rounds, I saw that the traders chat in my server, in the server for the game, was empty. So I'm like, okay, I don't think these people are actually utilizing private chats or DMing. So I didn't think it was necessary to mention until it came to a fault for Carson, where he saw the trader's shot for the first time and thought that that's where things were happening. And, you know, to Carson's defense, he wasn't oblivious to what had happened. It was just his first time seeing that there was a trader's chat. But up until that point.
Ain't nobody told him to vocalize that.
No,
There's
exactly,
no way
Norris.
I would have said it out loud.
Yeah, exactly. Keisha and Justice had also seen that chat for the first time. They didn't say anything, but Carson, it was his first time seeing it. Up until that point, the only times the traders had talked to each other was in the private Zoom call. So there's some leverage for Carson there, but I agree. But no, Leak. But let's bring it back to Leak. Leak, you had a lot to say. You made a diss track about production.
I'm like, Lee, give me an open verse. No, I'm just kidding.
Right. Let's hear a little freestyle, Leak. What you got to say
I'm
about
not,
production?
I'm not doing no freestyle at all.
Wait, Leak, do it about what we talked about.
I'm not doing no at all. I was not
It'll be
prepared,
funnier.
but
It'll be funnier.
I do got something to say. I do got something to say. Right, this game was good. That was my first game, even though I was high, and I probably was the reason that we lost stuff like that. It was a good game. Like I'm a loyal player, innocent, not chaotic, like some people like to call me and everything. Production, but that was a good game and stuff like that. I would definitely play that again. That this song came about because production has an issue with me. Back then they didn't, but production definitely has an issue with me. I've been
Do
playing games.
we?
I played
It
games.
seemed like y'all do.
I played games with them after that where I just got jumped. Charlie and Jeremy jumped me in one game.
Charlie.
And Jeremy jumped me in one game.
Let's
Wait,
tell
hold
the
on.
audience- let's tell the
Wait,
audience
we
that
jumped
you
you,
Jeremy
or you
first.
jumped us?
Right.
No,
I'm on Team Leak.
the love game Discord game. Y'all was like
You
going at me
jumped
in the
Jeremy first and then brought me into it.
because Jeremy said
So
this.
you
he said-
mad that we retaliated?
Listen, I'm coming for whoever with Team Jeremy.
And did the same thing in a Survivor Cam game. Came after Jeremy. I wasn't even on the same tribe as you.
I said to get rid of Emily and Jeremy because they was the duo. That's what I said.
What does that have to do
We
with
were
me?
not a duo. We were playing the game
Y'all a
as
crew.
one
Y'all all
person.
y'all play each other. Like,
You called me Jeremy's
listen,
henchman. Like, what am I
I'm a
supposed to
very
do?
honest player, y'all. I'm really play with my heart and everything. I just don't know why people just pick with me and stuff like that. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I will say,
Yeah.
I think I love you, Leak, and I think everybody went out there and played with their heart. And I think in the spirit of the musical moment that was released, I think I can speak for all of us when I say we all put our best foot forward.
Yeah.
And I think all of us, whether we've gotten it or not, just want to receive, love from the people who brought us into this game. Otherwise, it just feels like a trap. I'm just kidding. But we all do genuinely want to feel like, we went out here, we had a good time, we met some great people, and what is it? Oh, Jesus, let me not even step into that. But we all just had a good time and we met some great people. All of y'all on the screen are cool. Some people who are not on the screen are not so cool. I'm just kidding. But this was fun. And I hope that, in time, y'all will come to feel the same way.
Yeah. Since we're closing up, I just want to say, I don't think I heard anybody say it yet, but I think the editing of the episodes are really nice. So credits to Jeremy for that. It was really well produced. Because I did live watch Hyperbeam streams with my friends, and I even had a in real life one when we had a pool day, and my friends were like, "Oh, this is really good. Like, where did he get the budgets?" And I know he had no budget, $0. So I was like, it's really good. It's all to your craft, and it was really good. It was really good, really good. So thank you, Jeremy, for hosting and for actually producing and releasing the episodes.
Yeah,
Sure.
I also, first of all, like you did not get me together, bitch. Don't do that because I could come out of character. But also, the game is also it's really just never that serious. People are so critical of our games, but also understand we've literally only have 5 minutes to talk, and we don't have really much to go out like this. We're not seeing each other in person, so it's not that serious. I'm literally gonna see Jendaya next month or two. It's just not that serious. I saw Baylor.
We're
We
gonna
gave
see
each
each other
other.
in a week by the end. A week.
I saw
it next
Baylor. We
week?
gave each other a hug. We were it's so it's just funny. It's all fun and games. So I hope no one came in here ready to pop off. I'm not gonna get down like that with people on Zoom. I just definitely won't. But I mean, I enjoyed everyone in the cast. I have like really good friends now. Like I have a connection with Nick now and Carson and other people
Yeah.
too. So it's just really, really fun. So I appreciate like all of you guys that are on call. Jeremy, production. I had a really good time.
I
Bow.
I do want to ask, where is Ava? Because I feel like she had so much to say on the podcast about us. But here,
Hello,
what
hello,
is
hello,
going on?
hello.
She's at the
Somebody call her
movies.
on the
She's
phone.
at the movies
Movies.
tonight.
Okay.
Now
Well,
production got
she did
a
have a
voice.
lot to say.
I
I'm
will
just
say
wish
to
she was
kind
here.
of
Not the call out from Nick.
Yeah, no,
Oh my
I'm like
goodness.
Ava was good.
to kind of close this out, I will say
Ava,
thank
I was
you.
loyal. I just want to point that out. That's all I have to say. Ava kept thinking I was going to turn on my people. I did not
Oh,
turn on
you
my
got
people.
beef too? Oh gosh.
No, me and Ava are good.
No,
Ava
I'm
said
just
nice things
kidding.
about
I'm just
me.
kidding.
But Ava
Everybody,
did
we
think I
all
was going
love
to turn
each
on my
other,
people.
and it's all good.
Everybody put a heart up. Everybody put a heart up.
Okay,
Gosh, not
now,
this,
I'm putting a
Jeremy.
heart up for everyone except for Nick.
I put
I just want to
production.
say thank you to everyone who watched. Thank you guys for joining us. I will say that this season was a really big passion project for me, Jeremy, and Emily. I think that it was really fun to like go through this process with them and to just like see it all to come together, even through all the bumps that we had, I guess. It's been really fun to talk about this game and like finally getting to have the conversations that we've wanted to have since February, and getting everyone to see his final project. I'm thankful that like you guys have been super active about it and like really given us the viewership that we've wanted. Thank you guys again. I don't know if Jeremy and Emily have anything else to say.
No, absolutely. I agree with all that. Thank you to all the players. Thank you to everybody who's on production. Thank you for Josie for joining us tonight. It was, and I've said this already. I have absolutely zero complaints about how the season turned out. On the podcast, of course, I played both sides. I played into why the faithfuls aren't winning, but zero complaints as an actual host. Everybody was phenomenal. It was a phenomenal season, entertaining. Everybody put their best foot forward, and there was nothing that I can say negative as an entertainment wise. But I enjoyed everybody. There's not anybody I wouldn't want to see play again, and I'm happy with how it turned out. You know? Keisha, congratulations. You absolutely deserve to win. You played a phenomenal game.
Thank you.
And it wasn't like was a laid back game. It was a
Yeah.
foot forward, aggressive win, which is what I love to see as a host, is the player who put all of their effort into the game. And you won. And I couldn't have asked for anything more. Keisha, you are one of the best winners in JSR along with Justice, and I am happy to have seen it play forth live.
Thank you. And for people who don't know, Jeremy's game was my first Discord game that I ever played. And I was like, what in the world is this? How do I navigate? I'm lost.
Oh,
So I've come a long way to figuring out how to work Discord, to playing orgs, and to doing things. So thank you, Jeremy.
Figured it out.
Thank you
I
guys.
really think it was a masterclass on how a quiet player wins. Like you did so good. It was amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you guys. Does anybody else have anything to say before we stop the recording? Awesome. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see what happens with the future. We have nothing set in stone right now, but who knows? Maybe you'll be hearing from us.
It's time for us to play Big Brother. Ooh.
Right. Maybe not as me as maybe not JSR, maybe not me as the host, but I would love to see the same cast running back on a different format.
Jade, if you win HOH, keep it real cute. Don't put me up.
Right. All right, everybody.
And Jay, remember, I was a traitor. I had to do it. I'm not doing
Y'all acting like Zendaya wins comps, please.
Right.
Oh my gosh. Okay, guys, let's not. That's a wrap. And
That's a wrap. Thank you, everybody. It was a phenomenal season. To everybody, and we'll see you next time. How do I end it?